Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and party people at home. My name is Brian David Judkins, and this is the cast of Encounter Party, and this will be our final seminar for the weekend at Gen Con Online. We are going to give you a little bit of a walkthrough for those of you who might be interested in creating your own actual play or D&D focused entertainment program. If you've been following any of our seminars over the course of the weekend, this will all sort of culminate into sort of this final exam for you guys. We've discussed everything from writing to combat to editing to publishing, and this is going to be a great opportunity for you guys to get a behind-the-scenes look of not only some of the elements that go into producing our show, but how you can take these elements and create something truly valuable of your own. We are an adventure audio podcast. We use Dungeons and Dragons to govern our storytelling. We also all happen to be professionals in the entertainment industry. And thanks to our most recent season, we have been lucky enough to garner an international audience. Partly in that we feel is because we know for a fact that we have a large portion of our audience doesn't even play Dungeons and Dragons, but is enjoying the storytelling aspect of our show. Which is why we thought we would do this program here today to showcase you guys how we have decided to put a story forward focus show rather than a game focus show, and the difference that might bring to your program. So my name is Brian David Judkins. I am the DM and the host of Encounter Party. With me is my co-producer, Ned Donovan, who is also the lead editor on our show. Sarah Babe, whose husband Brad is also Lord of the Board for us this weekend. So
shout out to Brad.
Shout out to Brad now and at the end of the show. Landry Fleming, who is a professional comedian out here in Chicago, and Andrew Krug, who is a stage and film actor out in California. In LA. I probably didn't need to specify. LA. So we are going to be running a one-shot called Krenko's Way, which some of you have had the pleasure of, that was presumptuous. Some of you have, thankfully for me, joined me to play with this weekend. I have had the pleasure of playing with you. Here we go, off to a good start. No, Ned's already laughing. I have had the pleasure of playing Krenko's Way with numerous people this weekend. It happens to be set in the world of Ravnica, which our first campaign is set in. So it's going to allow our cast members to play younger versions of themselves from the show. It's also going to allow them to easy navigate a world that they're very familiar with, so that we can kind of keep the pace going on this seminar here, and we can sort of skip a lot of the sort of inquisical stuff. They know what's going on. I know what's going on. And this way we can sort of do more about showcasing instead of trying to get you guys hooked on a story while we're going. So when we sit down for the gameplay session, now Encounter Party does things a little bit differently than other people because everyone here is kind of working on other projects. We never really wanted to create a show that required like everybody having to be ready every week because different opportunities come. Our sixth cast member, David Huynh, who you might have been playing with or seen this morning, got a call this afternoon for an emergency swap in for a reading. And it was like, yes, you need to go do that. His agent said, hey, you need to go do this reading. So we decided to create a show that functions as follows. We decided to get together for 1 week. We marathon an entire season for 8 to 9 hour recording days. And we just marathon a gameplay for an entire week, and then that gives us all of our raw footage. So we have to do a lot of preparing when we sit down. We don't have the luxury of playing a week, and then I get to go back and sort of write and work what we're going to do next week and kind of keep the story expanding it that way. We have a lot that we have to set up before we begin. And that requires not just from the story element, the gameplay mechanics, but that also requires the people sitting down at the table and playing the game to do a lot of character work, to kind of create some sort of skeletal ideas of where their character might transfer between, say, levels 1 and 4. I usually make that decision when we go in and say we might get somewhere between level 5 and 8 during this season, so they have to prep decisions like that. Those decisions might need to be sort of shifted on the fly as story elements make them turn into different people or grow as different people. And Ned, with our sound capture and our sound engineer, Will Malones, who records the show for us, they have to make a lot of decisions when they go in as to far as edited points and geez, Ned, I don't even know, 1,000 different things that they need to do to sort of prep the post-production aspect of it to be as smooth as a process as possible. So once we get everybody down to the table, Ned talked in a previous seminar about editing, about getting the mic set up, and making sure that your sound quality is where it should be. Ned, do you want to just give a brief talk about table arrangement, as far as things that people need to be looking at? I know a lot of people consider, sort of the picnic table line for recording and stuff like that. Do you want to just give a brief description about the best way for orientation for audio capture?
Absolutely. I mean, look, the best way for audio capture is everyone sits in their own sound booth and no one gets to look at each other. And that's not possible. I don't know if you knew that about D&D, but you have to sit at a table. So for Will and I, when we arrive, the first thing we do, so we record in the suburbs of Chicago, and we're recording not in a studio but in a quiet house. And we
In my
get
house.
there.
Oh no, this is great. This is great. This is Velcro.
Oh, Brian's giving away all the trade secrets.
Yeah, he's just doxing himself live on camera.
This is this is, if you see me at a convention, you know this. This is a display copy. This is a foam core gallery booth that actually works as this amazing sound absorption. So if you can see behind Ned in his picture, the sort of like common known foam and stuff that he has, this is collapsible and freestanding. I'm fortunate enough to have a house in a quiet neighborhood outside of Chicago. And you're going down forever. There's no way you're going to get aligned again.
Yeah,
there we
if
go.
you tried to pull that off, I would have been so upset.
If it had gone blank, I would have cut the feed right now and just did a dance. So I have a bunch of these stuff for other aspects of work, but we basically we can't afford $100 an hour space for how many hours in a week. So we basically just line my living area with that sort of stuff and set up a makeshift sound booth. So sound muffling is key number one.
Will and I arrive, and the first thing we do is Will brings his gear, I bring some of my gear, and we spend the next couple of hours setting up the table. So our table, we try to sit as far apart as possible to avoid crosstalk on microphones, but we have to be close enough together that we have to play. So it's a careful balance of where do people sit, how do we angle their seats a little bit, and the goal is basically you want to avoid anyone talking directly into anyone else's microphone. And so it's about figuring that math out. Now, we put the things you see behind Brian directly behind me. So at our table, Brian and I are on either sides of the table, and then the rest of the party is along the third and fourth sides. And Brian, because he talks more than anyone else as the DM, there's a wall directly behind me that reflects directly back into my microphone. And so in our first season, we actually had a really, really rough time in post because we didn't put up any sound dampening. And Will and I spent a lot of time pulling that sound back out because you would hear echoes of Brian in my microphone. And especially if we were talking at the same time, it made it very hard. And shout out to Will Malonis. He did a phenomenal job at helping me pull that off. Yeah. And so for season 2, we put up these sound walls behind me, and it is night and day, the difference in the editing process, how much time was saved just by making that one little decision. There's, it's always like the stupid little, like, you feel so technical, but we took a rolled up carpet that Brian had and we stuck it in one of the corners because that corner happened to be reflecting into Sarah Babe's microphone. And just by putting that carpet there, the room becomes significantly better sounding. So taking the time to set up the space, if you were in my last panel, we talked about try to avoid hard surfaces and undressed floors, and often you can't. So you try to record however you can dampen the sound, and you want cloth, you want moving fabric, you want thick pieces of foam if you've got them, anything that allows you to just change up the way sound waves will echo around the room. That is what will give you the best chance for success. And Will and I spend the first 2 to 3 hours just working on that before we get down to the table. And while we're doing that, the rest of the party is rolling dice, catching back up, getting to know each other, getting comfortable with their characters and with the mics. You really get to see sort of the pre-production is vastly important to the production.
The thing to keep in mind is that audio is such an important part of our entertainment experience, but most people just don't really. Most people don't necessarily have the education to understand how much they already know or how much they just intrinsically can interpret as correct. And so, even if you're trying to do something visually, you're trying to do something on stream, there are a lot of people who have streams on incidentally while they're also trying to multitask and do other things. So even if you're trying to do something visually, I recommend focusing on your audio more than anything. It will allow you to even take your streams and convert them into podcasts if you want to do something later. But people can hear the difference. And that difference in cleanliness really makes a difference as to whether or not people feel physically comfortable listening to your podcast. Damaging audio or pardon the crudeness of this term, but half-assed audio creates a half-assed listening experience. So we definitely recommend focusing on that too. So that sort of pre-setup is really, really key. And if you guys are going to do things like live streams and you're going to have sort of that long line of a situation because you want that, many people aren't taking that far wall into consideration because nobody sees it. It's behind the camera.
It's so important. And I will say also, just to piggyback on that, as many people who came to my seminars know, I produce in a lot of mediums: theater, film, podcasting, music, and in each one I can tell you the thing that separates a good project from a great project is always sound. It just is. The better quality your sound, the more people will buy into your world. I truly believe in indie film. You can forgive a pixelated camera, but if the sound is bad, you're going to turn off the movie. And the same is true for me with a podcast. The time you spend to figuring out how to make your sound capture cleaner is just time spent towards your fans enjoying your product more.
Absolutely. So once we get set up, I'm sorry, Chad, I can't immediately remember the name of the company that makes these, but I believe they're based down out of Austin, Texas. These are stackable. You can buy them in pieces, and you can stack them pretty high. Once we get everything set up, and we're ready to perform. Now we have to consider. Oh, well, let me back step one way. One of the reasons that we do the table that we are at is because we don't have a visual element to worry about yet. We will next season. Well, the season after the one we're about to release, when we switch to a visual element, thanks to our agreement with the Fantasy Network, Encounter Party is getting turned into a video series. So we're going to have a whole new seminar about how to deal with that. But because we don't have a visual element, we decided to sit around the table because we decided to use maps and miniatures. You don't need to do that. In fact, having an audio podcast might be one of the best ways to avoid anything that might count as an expense. A long time ago when I started coming to Gen Con, somebody was like, hey, you can buy this board game with a bunch of miniatures and then use them for D&D. And I was like, yes, that excuses that very expensive video game. And so we've been using them for Encounter Party, and they've worked out great. We use physical representations on the table when we do our podcast because we think it helps a lot with pacing, and it helps moves things forward. Being able to create a visual element allows people to sort of skip through constantly needing to ask about things in regards to certain aspects that theater of the mind might present. Theater of the mind is cheap, it's easy to do, and if you are descriptive enough, can be very, very entertaining. But when it comes to recording and it comes to the entertainment industry, time literally is money. And so you have to be considerate of how much time you are offering your audience, what is the cost of listening to your show, and what is the cost of making your show as far as time and or money, depending on contracts you may be holding. So that's why we play personally with us at a table. It doesn't provide anything to you. It is literally for speed of capture. And that's also kind of why we sit in the table. So when we actually get ready to begin the adventure, the beginning of each situation, that's on me. That's on your DM. You function as the narrator, as well as NPCs, as well as bad guys, and you have to accept a big role. If you have decided to make a program where you think that people will enjoy consuming your program because they like you as people, perhaps you have personalities for other media, or perhaps you just think that you guys happen to be incredibly cool people and you want people to sort of engage with you on that parallel. That is an okay and fine thing to do for your players. But as the DM, you have to inhabit so many things that I cannot recommend enough as a DM how much you need to leave your own personal self at the door. People are going to make inside jokes. People are going to have fun. Let that stuff come from the table. But as you as a DM, if you are going to try and make this type of content for entertainment, you have to really leave yourself at the door. You're going to be playing too many people. You're going to have too much under your belt. And you really need to be able to focus on that. Let your players be the Mickey Mouse Club. Let them be the clubhouse. Let them do their thing. You be the parent who keeps hanging out at the top of the stairs asking if anybody needs ice cream or Rice Krispie treats. So we're going to begin now here. Now we have this if you're going to play a pre-con, we happen to write our own campaigns. I know a lot of people do. Some people just play pre-generated stuff from Adventure League and stuff like that. Personally, I think either is fine. You obviously have more control over some dramatic elements if you write your own thing, but nothing suggests that you can't, deviate or anything like that. So we have this little bit of an introduction here provided for Krenko's Way that is literally just a couple of paragraphs. Life in the 10th district is never dull, a hub of constant activity that always offers a new opportunity, a new challenge, and new intrigue. Today is your lucky day. I heard from today someone is looking for help finding something might be a good opportunity for you. These are all very, very loose things that are designed to get you into the action. If you're trying to make something for entertainment, your biggest difficulty, especially if you're going to be writing a campaign on your own, is you have to excuse the first 5 minutes of your show. It's going to be the hardest thing you guys produce, is the first 5 minutes of your entire program. And that is, how do you justify, in this case, 4 people sitting down in a room, beginning a story when they don't know each other? You have to justify that, and you get 4 to 5 minutes to do it before your audience completely clicks off. That's very, very daunting, and it can be very, very scary, which is why you need to do a lot of your prep. Don't be super confident in a situation where you're just going to sit down and start running an adventure. You have to justify everything. And we're going to talk about making sure that tracks on how to do that. So we have this wonderful little thing that just sort of says, hey, here we go. Here's where you guys are. Ready, set, begin. Doesn't cut it. So my job as the narrator is to present a much more elaborate scene. And you need to color it. You need to understand your world as deeply as you can. We happen to be very familiar with Ravnica at this point. So when they start saying things like, hey, the time of the day is the sun is setting, you need to be able to find a way to color that even deeper and provide information to your players and to provide information to your audience members by coloring things and finding a way to add exposition at the same time without just sort of saying, hey, here's what's going on. That's a pace killer. Okay, so here's what's going on. No, color it. Lead an intro. You're making a show. The sun begins to set over Ravnica. The time of day grows dark. The guilds that function and thrive in the darkness begin their day, while those that thrive in the light give way to the night. That in 2-3 lines sets up that there is a disparagement between who's doing what, gives so much characterizing information between different characters, what they're doing, what their role is in the world, and it helps allow your players who may be unfamiliar with the world get a sense of their own place in what's going in. In the case of Krenko's Way, the idea is that the villain Krenko, who is a goblin mob boss, has escaped during a prison transfer. And the idea in the setup is that every one of your players is level 1. They're kind of new into their guilds. And this is a great opportunity for them to get some money, some clout, get themselves to maybe get some renown within their guilds because they're functioning. And all in all, it's a pretty loose setup. But this adventure is also meant to give people a lead into characters further on. One of the big challenges for you at this head of the table is you have to give the audience a reason to care about the characters. And we talked about in our combat seminar how you go about doing that. You need to get your audiences to care about the players. They don't have to care about you as the DM. And I know that can be challenging in some regards because we know some very, very popular, very, very successful programs that kind of look at the DM as this sort of hailed hero, and that's great. But if you want to make this program successful and you are nobody, you need to get your audience attached to the players because ultimately it is their story. You need to validate your players because your audience is going to graft onto the players. You validate and reward the players. You validate and reward the audience. That's how you get the hook. You have to, as quickly as you can, make it about the players. You can set up a lot of stuff with them on the forethought. You guys are members of your respective guilds. You're fairly young. You are new to your guilds. You don't have any respect in your guilds. You have very little money. You have dreams of making it big one day. Perhaps there are peoples in your guilds that you respect, that you admire, but for now, you are nobody. A friend happened to mention that there's somebody on the lookout for people just like you, willing to do something for reward, but zero admonishment. Admonishment?
Admiration?
Admiration. There you go. Also, side note, here's a trick. Get somebody like Ned Donovan or Andrew Krug in your cast where you can just ramble until they find the word you were actually looking for. Helps.
Something
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in on here. So as Brian's going through all of this, and we're all getting set up as players, something that we have someone doing live for our table. Shout out to Will Malonis.
Yeah.
Will is incredible. Will is a huge part of why we are successful because since he exists, I don't have to spend my time listening to the show. I can just be a player and trust that Will capture it for me. But Will is setting levels at the table. Now we did this in the beginning when we were setting up the room, but he will start to live adjust people over the course of the session. We record directly into Pro Tools for those of you who were in my last session. And we record directly into Pro Tools where Will is sort of custom EQing and he has a board where he's adjusting sliders. But the goal of the capture is to capture the most neutral audio you possibly can, and you're trying to capture audio that you don't artificially boost when you capture it. So it's a weird thing to think about, but sometimes someone's mic, when you listen to it later, will be significantly quieter than everyone else's. And it's because that is the natural capture point for that microphone. And Will isn't overjuicing that microphone and creating fragmentations and weird sounds that you can't get rid of later. So something that's really important if you are the person running the sound is you are trying to capture everyone's flat, neutral tone so that you have the ability to do anything with it later.
If you can afford or you can get access to somebody outside who has an education in sound, obviously you're going to be a leg up. Otherwise, somebody try and take the time to get a little bit of education. You'd be surprised in today's day and age with the accessibility to resources and tech at the amateur level, how much of a difference you can make with very, very little time commitment.
Something a couple actual plays do that I highly recommend out there if you don't have access to sound guys like we do through our own connections is there are a few shows, and shout yourselves out, I'm comfortable with that in the Twitch chat if you like, who if there is a 6-person cast, every 4-ish episodes, someone is the sound guy. So they all trained themselves up, and there is someone not playing for 2 to 3 episodes and running sound. And then they trade out, and now they're in the cast because of the way the story's written. This is a very good idea if you don't have access, because having an external sound guy just cuts a lot of potential danger from your recording.
Sorry, the clouds are coming in and out, so I get like light and then no light and darkness and stuff like that too. So these opening 5 minutes are so vital to lock down everybody, which is why a very, very colorful, enriching description is important. Because if you can buy 5 minutes of investment, you can probably buy a good 20 minutes before somebody has to check their watch and go, eh. So some narration to begin an adventure is far easier to listen to and absorb than hey, everybody, how's everybody doing? We're making our show, trying to make it into a talk show. First, give us a story, then give us characters and show why they're in that story. So Crank Goes Away immediately gives you an opportunity to introduce the characters, to tell people that you show up and you happen to see a couple of other people hanging around, and this is what they look like. So this is a moment where you pass it off to your players. Again, why that prep is so important. So I don't know if they happen to remember the introductions that they made at the beginning. We are kind of asking them to spitball it here off the dome. But I'm going to start in just about the order it happened on the actual show. And I'm gonna.
I listened to those introductions so many times, Brian. I could do them all by memory.
So you happen to see some like-minded individuals. First up, Andrew Krug. This is how you introduce them. Instead of going, hey, here's a bunch of names that have zero relevance to you don't know. Introduce people one at a time. Andrew Krug, would you please tell everybody what they see?
Lurking at the mouth of the alley, a tall, spindly Devkaran elf waits quietly for his contact. Clad in rags from head to toe, hair a matted nest of knotted strands, within which nests a large beetle, clicking its mandibles intermittently.
Ned Donovan was next.
He was. Off in a corner of the alley, looking somewhat aloof and disinterested, is a Selesnyan human fighter who is twirling around his longsword as he stands there staring off into space. Brevin Ravel is yes, exactly, Brian, thank you. Brevin Ravel is a 6 foot tall human with tanned skin that is intertwined with these green luminescent tattoos that wind their way up around his arms and around his body and across his neck, over his hairless head and down, wrapping around his eyes, where you find 2 eyes of the exact same hue. He stands there staring off into space, and you might think he's looking at nothing and everything all at the same time, but he stands there making sure that he understands everyone in his path.
Now, we are slightly off the cuff on this, so there's a lot of forgiving, but I can tell you right now, you need to all confer with everybody why they go in and make sure that all of these are about the same length. Just hearing about pacing, that was long. That is something you can, if you're not live, you can take a second and retake it. But an unequal amount of time like that, the more you produce things, the more you'll just sort of hear the pacing. For us, we cut out. I bet you when Ned goes in later, if he was to listen to that, he would go, we'll cut out these 2 sentences.
Cut it in half.
Yeah, something like that. Fikara, Sarah Babe.
Yeah. Fikara O'Droon is a younger looking minotaur with caramel colored fur, light blonde hair, and a mohawk underneath her helmet. She's got 2 maces at her side and a tabard from the Boros Legion that is definitely too clean for someone that's been in the Legion for very long. She's got blue eyes that have a little bit of a twinkle of someone who hasn't quite seen the atrocities of war yet. And she's standing around trying to look aloof, but failing at it quite immensely.
So let's just take a second at that introduction and talk about how freaking fantastic it was. Listen to the description that she gave. She's wearing a tunic that's a little bit too clean, and her eyes have the twinkle of somebody who hasn't really seen war yet. You just learned everything about this character in one line. Fantastic. because now as an audience member, you're already thinking about what her past is, and you're already thinking about what's going to happen the minute she gets into her first first conflict. That is a phenomenal level to approach. Xenia, played by Landry Fleming. I'm sorry, I know you guys so much on mic by your characters now. You're muted. Oh no.
It's a great face for her to be frozen on.
It's a great frozen Xenia face. For sure.
Oh no.
Something I'm going to touch on while we wait for Landry's internet to reconnect, because it was brought up in Discord chat, so now's a great time to do it. Not all shows have the luxury of recording in person. What do you do in that regard? Now, obviously, we're doing that right now. Andrew's in Los Angeles. I'm in New York City. Brian's in Chicago. Sarah's in Milwaukee. Landry's also in Chicago. There is a variety of software and tool at your disposal that you can use. Now, if you go back and listen to the seminar I gave just about an hour ago, I talk a lot about the pitfalls and dangers of that kind of recording and how you can mitigate that risk. But the big thing that I will say is no matter where you record your audio natively. Don't record it into the cloud. Don't capture a Zoom feed. Let each person on a microphone be captured even to their own computer and then assemble it later. You otherwise are going to run into a bunch of problems you cannot control, like internet spikes and distortions, and there's just nothing you can do about it. So I highly recommend, if you're going to record by Discord or Zoom and whatever else, to be capturing your audio locally. There are some tools that allow you to do this if you're not looking at each other. Zencastr is a very good one, and in fact, I think actually if you pay for Zencastr, you get access to the video. All our videos just flipped, so enjoy that. I would look into that, but if you are going to play remote, the most important thing is mitigate your own personal risk as a player, and if everyone does that, then it'll capture smoothly.
I'm sure Brad's good. Hey, you have any off-the-cuff advice for technical difficulties getting in the way of your recording time?
Yes, I have so many. Let's talk about this one. There's nothing you can do about it. The internet is your least favorite friend and your best friend, and it just is what it is. You can mitigate it by getting together. If you're gonna play remote, expect drops and play through them when you can, but just acknowledge that by playing through them, if it's harmed on someone else's audio, you're never going to get it back. So you need to be very careful. I think we're regaining a Landry.
We're possibly yay!
Yay! It's also it's difficult to do everything remotely because you have different people who are running off different computers, different cameras, different mics, and there's a lot of that you can't control unless you have the money and the means or whatever to have everybody have the exact same camera, the exact same mic, the exact same computer. So there's a lot more unpredictability when you're dealing with a situation that is remotely based. Because Brad and I deal with that all the time.
Yeah, and when we're talking about unpredictability, there's a couple of things that you can save. There's a couple of things that you can do to kind of help those situations. I'm going to have Landry discuss something a little bit later that she has no idea I was going to ask her to discuss. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Just a quick thing,
Brian, just to cut in. Welcome to Kelly Butler, the Opera Geek, who played live on our stream the other night. Welcome to the Twitch chat. It's really good to have you.
Hi.
We had a great time the other night on Twitch Plays Random D&D, and we're so happy for you to join in.
Yay, that was so great. Okay. Landry, you're currently muted, but could you give us a Xenia description so we could round out this part of the talk?
Sure can. Did I transcribe what I did from the first episode? Absolutely, I did. I will adjust it slightly for today. Giving space between herself and the other members of this cobbled-together party, you see Xenia, the Vidalcan of the Izzet Guild. 6 foot tall, lean and lithe, young for Vidalcan at 41, with azure skin and violet eyes. She'd cut an imposing figure if she wasn't repeatedly rubbing her palms on her pants, attempting to generate static electricity. There's more, but that was enough.
Fair enough. So, side note, check with the other castmates. Make sure you're not all the same height.
Yes, we didn't do that.
Everyone in Counterparty, with the exception of Fakara, is somewhere between 6 and 6'2". That does not need to be the standard adventurer. It's just a side note. Secondly, people are going to be making stuff with their casts. People are going to be making stuff with their friends. If you're going to go all in, really consider finding how much diversity that you can bring. We have 4 very distinct characters right now. Andrew is bringing somebody that's a little bit dark and mysterious, perhaps a little bit sees things that other people don't see. Brevin is a very, confident character who seems ready for action, ready to move things forward. Fakara has this sort of innocent. Sarah does an amazing job of bringing the audience with her as a character, so you guys can sort of. She likes to play characters with as little experience as the audience, so they can sort of grow with her. And Landry herself is really just an amazing comedian who brings a lot of sort of wild excitement to our things, and allows the podcast to get shaken up in ways that some of the more sort of furrow-browed people at our table don't really think of, without necessarily bringing chaos. Be careful of cast members that think chaos is funny. It's not. Be wary of players who think stupidity is funny. It's not. When you're sitting down at a table, the best piece of advice I can give anybody working on this, making a story from anything, I got it from, you always learn the most things from the people you hate. Worst comedy teacher I ever had in my life gave me the best writing note ever. Everybody must operate at the height of their intelligence. Okay? The example is Joey Tribbiani from Friends. Not a smart guy, but never acted dumb. He acted as smart as he thought he was. Lorzach is going to be a very contemplative character. He is a guy who sees a lot of stuff, and we'll review that note from the combat class a little bit later. Xenia is a little bit more of a space cadet, but she's not dumb. Fakara is innocent and naive, but she's not dumb. They are affected by the world around them, which is just because they're professional actors. But be wary of chaos and stupidity. Be wary of trying to be funny and zany and mistaking that for entertainment. What you want to build is quality, not chaos. So now that we have our characters, we're ready to actually get into the game. We have 4 very, very unique descriptions to allow the audience to understand that there's going to be some variance. So depending on how much time they want to invest, chances are one of these people might bring something that sounds interesting. Now it's my job to get the actual story underway, and it's my job to keep pace. And I want you to keep an eye on that note as we're going to play through some of this section. It's my job to keep pace. So, you guys have a little bit of a description of the setting as this particular pre-gen kind of gives you a little bit. Otherwise, you have to write it. Light rain begins to patter on the cobblestones as the sun sets behind the spires of the towers of Ravnica. You see a male Vidalcan in well-tailored clothing approach your group from around the side of the prison. He is deep blue, but carries a gentle, concerned expression. He raises his hand to hail you and speaks in a low tone as his eyes take in your group and the nearby environs. Are you here to help us find something?
Yes.
So I'm told.
And to also get compensated.
Fair enough. So what we can immediately hear is, this is why these first 5 minutes are so daunting, is your players don't know where to invest themselves yet. So asking them to jump headlong into this story that you've already written and planned out and know the weight of, they don't know anything. You get this in every show. It happens to our show. It happens in the first episode of both seasons after we've been together for 20 episodes. The very, very first time you ask your players to interact, they will always pause because they have nothing to build on. And the stakes of getting involved on that first step are so high for the success of your show. DMs, this is on you to push past this point as fast as you can. The minute you hear that break, The minute you hear dead space on your air, it's your job to push forward. I don't really care how. Fill dead air. It's the number one killer of your show. If that means that you have to provide them information you were going to try and have them ask for, if that means you have to jump ahead in the story, so be it. Do whatever you can to fill that dead air immediately because it's your job, because they're looking for it. So you get that dead space immediately. Good. There is a troubling matter that happened this morning. I suppose word had gotten round. I am in need of some assistance from some people who are willing to do something perhaps discreetly.
And what is it that you need found?
A convict.
That sounds like a someone, not a something.
I consider him a thing.
Oh.
There's a man who escaped during a prison transfer this morning. His name is Krenko. He is a wanted criminal known for a long list of crimes, including murder.
How did he escape such a esteemed company as our Azorius Guard?
I have to random roll to determine that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I already played Krenko's Way with you.
There are 6 options. By the way, play
Oh.
Krenko's Way. It's great. How he escapes, there are 6 different options as to how that could happen.
I was so to tell me the same thing I played.
Actually, we're gonna do one we haven't done just in case anybody said anything. He was being transferred by some Azorius guards, as per, when an impenetrable fog appeared, confusing the escort and obscuring their view. Krenko slipped his restraints and scurried off into the mist. We suspect shadowy involvement, if that means anything to you.
It does not.
The Demir, my dear.
Gotcha. 10-4.
Is he a known associate of the Demir?
No, in fact, the Krenko's gang has been quite unaffiliated. Yes.
So something that just happened, you'll notice I stepped on Andrew. And if you listen back to this episode, you won't hear me step on Andrew. There's 2 ways you can solve that problem. One, just turn off my microphone in the edit and hope you can't hear me in Andrew's. That's step 1. If not, take a quick pause and Andrew starts over that quick moment. Because what you want is clean audio and my in the recording, and it'll take you out of the listening experience.
When you Ned, when you rewatch this, you will realize how hysterical that line was because your audio hiccuped and stretched when you said,
Yeah, you went
You need
completely
clean
robot
audio.
voice for
when you watch that,
audio.
that was, everybody just had a great moment there. We all shared it. You'll get it later.
Great.
Very good.
Yeah. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to like restart a line. Don't feel like that's particularly cheating. We do it obviously just in case somebody stepped on something. We don't ever want to ruin somebody's opportunity to role play and stuff like that. So
And we don't want to ruin your listening experience later.
because me saying the line on mic, I'm sorry, could you take that again? Is just bad. That doesn't do anything. So, but for a behind the scenes look, Andrew, could you please take that thought again?
Yeah. And is he a known Demir associate?
Just to piggyback off that line, that only works if you're editing, by the way. If you're doing a live broadcast and stuff like that, you guys might want to develop some sort of system or signal or code to make sure people don't do that, or get the sort of familiarity with each other so you can just immediately push past it without having to address it.
And what some people are doing, just to put it out there, is some people actually live stream the blemishes. They'll say, I'm going to take that again, and they'll do it, but then they'll edit the podcast release. That's a really fun way of doing it as well.
Yeah, Sarah.
There's one thing that I would suggest for anybody who's a player in something like this: take notes. Because if you're constantly asking, I'm sorry, what did you just say? Wait, what just happened? Wait, what did we do 10 minutes ago?
What was his name?
Right. That's going to be a detriment to the editorial process.
If you aren't paying attention, why should your audience?
Yeah.
I'm just going to reset my camera real quick. We're good. I'm back. Flash.
I missed you.
Hey.
I was sad. I'm glad you're back. Oh,
He
no,
did
he's
it
back again. Oh, yeah, you're
Two
back.
of them.
Okay.
Object permanence.
Okay, back into the game. Here we go. No, Kranko is not a known assistant associate with the Demir. Kranko was the leader of his own gang. They are not guild affiliated, but they are rather quite dangerous. He
Does,
was expected to go to Uzdek for the rest of his days.
Does Krenko's gang still operate even without Krenko at the head, or did they dissolve?
Well, I do happen to. So, at some point, you are going to, if you've got an inquisitive cast, if you've got a group of people that really like to talk things out, or you may be blessed / cursed with a party of people who like to play the game before it is played. We have hit a point, just because we're trying to work through this as fast as we can. We're going to jump to a point where I, as a DM, feel we could talk about this ad nauseum, but the point is we got to start moving forward in this story. I need them to start making action. There's only so much talking about things you can do before you do stuff. You need to recognize whether or not you're a group of people who've done that. I have tables where people try and play the game before they actually play the game. They try and strategize everything before they actually commit to doing something. And this we're going to see in about 20 seconds here that this campaign is an excellent risk factor for that particular thing. If you want the best adventure you could possibly have, roll dice and then write your story. Don't try and write your story and hope the dice fit it. Capiche? Good. So at this point, I'm going to force them to make a decision because we haven't had action for a hot minute. I, as the DM, need to push things forward. I have a dossier full of information based on Krenko. I appreciate your interest. However, I am looking for serious applicants only. This is a dangerous criminal who must be brought to justice. If you feel you are up to the task, I am willing to reward you. But let's not waste either of our time.
Where might he have gone?
I'm guessing the
Therefore,
information.
please.
Oh.
He'll be right back. We're good.
Okay.
We don't balk at tech issues. Keep going.
I'm guessing the information might be in the dossier. At least
If you need him found, I promise you he will be.
we'll find him.
You might be able to just turn
Yes.
your camera off instead of completely disconnecting from the call next time.
No, I dropped internet.
Oh, well.
Oh,
Well, welcome back.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks. It's good to be here.
We missed you.
So quick note. You guys heard my sort of standoffish tone. You hear me say this all the time. Your world needs to bite back. This is your campaign. These are professional actors. They know the program we're developing. There's no way they're going to say no to what's going on, but you need to make it justified so it doesn't feel like it's on rails. So that's why in my NPC choices, you often hear me be slightly standoffish when things are at stake, because we all know it makes good entertainment, because we all know they're going to concede, but it forces them to take an action. Me going, please, 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 can we tell the story, is different than, if you want to be a part of this story, you need to make a choice. Are you in or are you out?
I'm in.
Revan didn't have anything
Well-
else to do today. He's in.
there was zero talk of how
I'm
much
I'm going to
compensation.
call out that choice right there for a second, though, because you made that exact choice in season 1. I don't have anything else to do is really, really weak, because guess what your audience is going to think? Maybe I do have something else to do. Then listen to this. As players, you got to find a way to ingratiate yourself. And the more you know your character before you walk in, the better that's going to be.
Yes. Well, it depends. If this is a very dangerous convict, I'd like to know how much will be compensated before I agree to this.
I am willing to issue 10 Xeno right now for expenses necessary to bring him back to justice. If you require further reward, then knowing that you've kept the streets of Ravnica safe, I suppose I could issue 100 Xeno for his return under the condition he is alive, and under no circumstances are you to attempt to interrogate him on your own.
Bump it up to 12 so it's an even distribution. Perhaps?
Great. Make them roll dice. Give me a persuasion check.
So is that
18.
18. Now, is there any cost to me giving her 2 extra fake money? No. Does it affect my story negatively if they get paid slightly more? Probably not. Is it a big reward for your player if they commit to something and do something? Yes. I'd say as long as she didn't roll under a 12, I'd give it to her. There you go. You get 2 more. You get rewarded. Now your players are more invested. Your audience feels confident that your players can do more stuff, and we get to move forward. Fine. I will give you 12, Zeno, to begin, under the condition you bring him back alive and do not make any attempt to interrogate him.
so? Wait, is that 12 per character?
No, stop. Everybody does this. Everybody asks that. No, it is not. It's an inside joke. No. Well, for everybody. Expenses.
I accept.
I like the attempt though. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Fine. This Vidalkin, whose name you have not gathered, hands you a dossier. So one of the things that you guys notice is my natural voice is different than my character voice. We happen to be professional voice actors. That's fine. You don't need to, if you guys hear some people on mic or stuff like that who do a lot of character voices or do a lot of things, you don't need to go full ham. Your audience, I promise you, your audience will forgive you for making an effort. They aren't going to come down on you for being like, I don't know, that didn't really sound like a dwarf of 36 years. They're not going to come down on you. But we highly recommend that for the sake of audio understanding, that you do your best to make your NPC characters sound different regardless of quality. And one of the ways that you can do that, if you don't necessarily have either the training or the skill to modulate your voice or change the timbre of your voice or change the diction and play with a bunch of embouchure. I grew up a fan of Jim Carrey. So I, as a child, played blah, 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 all throughout my youth. You can change what you do instead by just changing your lingo. This Vidalkin happens to be a noble person, so he's going to be calmer. He's going to speak more even-keeled. And if you happen to have the vocabulary range to say some really, really fancy words and tones, that's going to be a lot different than some of the characters you're going to experience less. We got some gangsters and stuff to deal with later. They're going to speak a different way, regardless of whether or not you can actually change the tone of their voice. So a dossier gets slid over to you. It has a bunch of notes in it. This is a great time for you to listen to Sarah Babe and take some notes. Couple of important things. Krenko has been a goblin mob boss for several years. His turf is Foundry Street, and he has been a person of interest for numerous crimes befitting of a mobster. However, he has managed to evade the law for most of his career. He was brought into custody by a man named Gideon Jura, a freelancer working with the Boros Legion at the time. Krenko was found guilty of murdering Dargig, who was one of the Shattergang brothers, and for assault with a deadly weapon against Gideon. The weapon on his person at the time was a magic shiv that was capable of punching through force barriers. It is not known how he obtained the weapon. He has 2 notable associates. One person simply goes by the name Mr. Taz. The other is a weapons inventor who is a possible ex-Izzet member who goes by the name of Faelish. Last known sighting around her was of Tin Street. Both are also people of interest.
Does the dossier mention where Taz was last seen or known to be hanging out?
Nobody knows who they are, what they are, where they are. They simply know that somebody goes by the name Mr. Taz.
Okay.
And the Krenko's gang, when they were headquartered near the 10th Street.
No, they're
They were Foundry
Cranko's
Street.
gang functions around Foundry Street.
Right, but are those near each other? Was kind of my question.
Kind of. They're
Okay.
they're easily transferable between the two. Tin Street is a market street that runs pretty much the length of downtown. You have to keep in mind that 90% of Ravnica is not guild affiliated, so it's full of shops and markets and pretty much anything commerce or retail related that you could want. And then at the night time when the shops shut down, there are theaters and nightlife and pubs and stuff going on. So stuff is happening at all hours on Tin Street, but it varies depending on what time of day you're at. In this particular adventure, it is immediately after sunset. It is currently raining. Something to keep in mind is that time of day is going to be a factor. Things are going to be happening parallel to you guys. So we will be keeping track of time of day while that sort of thing happens.
So
You
we
as
should move
players,
fast.
somebody asked me a random piece of information about the world that they are inhabiting, and I was very easily to tell them a very descriptive factor and was able to kind of tell them what they might be able to suspect about the environment without needing them to be physically there to experience it. That's going to give your audience a greater picture of the world. That's going to educate your players and your audience. Not being able to answer that question when people ask means you haven't prepared quite enough, and you're going to waste audio time and you're going to waste everybody's recording time. Know your world, do your research. The better your players are, the better you better be about knowing where they are, because they're going to ask really good questions, especially in this one because it's a mystery. Keep going, guys.
So sounds like the leads we have are on Foundry Street or Tin Street.
It feels to me like if I were Krenko, I would escape and run back to the people I know would protect me. And so it feels to me like Foundry Street is the start, because going after Faelish it feels like a side quest already in the dossier. It's not the direct link to Krenko that we have.
And yet, wouldn't Foundry Street be the obvious fallback? Wouldn't it be the first place that they would look? If there were anyone that he might be able to trust, it would either be Mr. Taz, for whom we have absolutely no leads, or Faelish, for whom we at least have a rough address.
I would just. I think it's it's a good idea. My worry is that if someone is a weapons supplier, that doesn't feel like someone you trust as part of your gang. It's someone you give money and they give you dangerous things. Like, why would they foster you?
Where do the Shatter Gang brothers hang out?
Excellent question. The Shattergang brothers, who were mentioned in the dossier, have made Tin Street their turf.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what. That does not
So we
seem like a
hear
good place to
hear
hide.
another break. We hear another break. They need to make a move. I can't provide them any more information. They need to make a choice, but they have a little bit of a lull as they're trying to figure things out inside. This is a great opportunity as a DM to remind them what they know, or take an opportunity to make things clearer, even if it means you're just repeating information you've already known. So you can say, so what you guys have figured out is you have the Shattergang brothers and you have Krenko. Remember that Krenko was arrested for killing one of the Shattergang brothers. The Shattergang brothers are in Tin Street, which is one of the leads that you have. Krenko's gang is located in Foundry Street, which is the other lead that you have, at least location-wise. This is a way that you can remind people of the information. You can also remind the audience to clarify. One of the things that you as players have to keep in mind, and I think our cast does a really fantastic job of doing that, is if you are a player, you can't just reason things out for yourself. You have to keep in mind your audience is sitting at the table as well. You have to leave a chair for your audience. They need to be kept up. If they can't follow it, if you don't lay it out for them blatantly, they aren't going to be able to keep up. They won't be interested. You have to treat your audience as if they might be struggling to understand. The people who do understand already will just be reaffirmed. The people who don't will be kept up. A show that sounds like it's trying to keep its audience to pace with them is rewarding the audience for paying attention. That equals audience retention. So these are the leads that you guys have found. I haven't told them which one to take. I haven't told them how to play. I haven't moved the story along. I also, very importantly, haven't told the characters what they think. Sometimes you hear that. Ned, you think this might be the right direction to take. That completely removes any choice he makes as a player and tells him where he should go. We have provided them information and letting them make the choice. I have everything prepared I need to respond to their choices. Where do you guys think is the best place to head?
I think Foundry Street might be the best, unless
I
he was
vote Foundry Street.
unless he was kidnapped. But we have no reason to believe that.
So, just real quick, don't let your players, if you're doing this for entertainment, don't let your players waste time rationalizing things you know are not true. Okay? They could spend the next 15 minutes debating whether or not he was kidnapped or not. You just simply chime in and say, Sarah, it is implied that the Demir helped him escape.
Okay.
That's it. Then you move forward. You haven't criticized her for thinking that way. You haven't done anything. You've provided her assistance.
It's a
You've
good
given the
question.
audience something they don't have to go with. That's it. Assume that the assumption is that they were helped.
Gotcha.
Seems to me that gang members tend to be night owls. It might be a good idea to head to Foundry Street. Might be their time of day.
Lord Zatch will ruefully acquiesce to the group's opinion, confident that Falish is the way to go. Yet he seems to be outvoted, and he's not quite strong enough to handle the 2 gangs of goblins and counting all by himself. So, fine.
Good. Player choice to move forward. Make a choice. We'll see what happens. Great. I feel like I had a note and I forgot it. Moving forward. Oh, yes. The NPC needs to say something. So, as you head off to wherever you think the best place is to go, I will give you this bit of information. I will be waiting in a granary, setting out. Oh, I'm so sorry. How completely unprofessional. For some reason, I accidentally activated iTunes and suddenly AC/DC started playing as I was setting up the next scene.
We didn't
And I
hear
was
it.
Didn't make it to
oh.
us, but that's awesome.
make
What
it?
great
Okay.
intro
Yeah,
music.
you're good.
Have a drink on me started to play as you guys were heading up to the Foundry Street.
Great scoring, though.
Scoring is another seminar altogether if you guys do it. Well, that was great. Okay. Again, this Vidalkin, whose name you don't know. I will be waiting in a granary off the southwest corner of the 10th district. There is an area very easy to recognize as it has been demolished some time ago by the Gruul and has since been reclaimed by some of the wilds. Just seek out an old, abandoned Selesnya granary. I will be waiting there. When you find Krenko, bring him alive.
And who are we delivering him to?
Myself.
And your name is?
My name is Nasius. I am a noble and a clerk who works for the office of the Guild Pact.
That's an interesting little piece of color.
The office of the
Color.
Guild Pact?
Yeah. Yeah, we've never gotten to it in our story. Yeah, it's a clerical office that is an independent group of people that deal with the Guild Pact as a whole.
So this guy's not from a specific guild pact.
They
Or
are
guild.
not from a specific guild.
All
I am
right.
concerned that with guild involvement, that Krenko may have had help from some others.
So why aren't we just taking him back to the prison he's supposed to be at?
Because if guilds are involved, and the Azorius aided in the escape of the prisoner,
Oh, right. Bad to have it go with the Azorius again. All right, I see. Yes, okay. Right.
if you wish for us to suggest that we should repeat the exact same mistake again, no thank you.
Right.
To Foundry Street.
Diddle-diddle-doo.
Meanwhile, at Foundry Street. That's my best Ted Knight impression. So again, we're transitioning scenes. Oh, check out that hairdo. We're transitioning scenes. You are a narrator. You have to recolor every time you change scenes. Also, Ned, do you have any advice about editing points and stuff like this? Like, what sort of noticeable transitions can help you in the long run?
Hard answer. I don't have one. Something that you might have seen on the last seminar is I end up with 8-ish hours of audio from a single day, and that will turn into somewhere between 2 and 4 episodes, depending on how swiftly we move as a group. And so what ends up happening often, as Brian will tell you, is the reason we take so long to edit is I will edit 10 episodes and then I will send Brian them and I'll say this actually might be 8 episodes and it instead episode blank ends here, which starts episode blank here, and that means that this one now has to end there, and so we end up negotiating that once we have a feel for the whole thing. Something I can tell you is the only thing we're guaranteed to cut is pauses and air. We want to keep the story moving and rolling, and we have to think on our side, but you don't have to listen to us think all the time because that is a lot. And so in terms of the edit points, you kind of have to feel it out, especially when you record the way we do. Now, if you're recording, let's say, a Discord in an afternoon, right, with friends, you're recording for 4 hours, you think it's going to turn into 2 episodes, you can feel confident that somewhere around the 2-hour mark is your halfway point. Congratulations, you have 2 episodes. But when you have 60 hours and we think it's going to turn into somewhere between 15 and 22 episodes, you kind of have to just trust that you'll feel it. And then I'll usually text Brian and be like, hey, this is where the episode's going to end. That means we have to start thinking 5 episodes forward because we sometimes get to places we expected to be the end of an episode and it's like 15 minutes into an episode and we obviously can't cut there. So for the editing purposes, you have to really trust it all goes back to what I said in my seminars. Trust your initial intent and make your choices based on what you think is best suiting your intent, and it'll all fall out from there.
And keep in mind, if you missed any of our seminars, they're going to be available on demand on our Twitch stream, so you should be able to watch them at your own convenience. And if you happen to go reference the writing seminar that I did about how to write an adventure, if you've planned your skeleton out correctly, this is one of those moments. Getting them from the beginning to the point where they go chase their first lead, anything in between is up to them. Now we're going to go do Foundry Street. Your next skeleton is whatever Foundry Street is. So as long as they end Foundry Street with either successfully chasing a lead or failing to chase a lead, everything in between is up to them. You just know a lot of possibilities and can respond accordingly. Having some experience writing or some education in writing is going to help you. We happen to be a group of professionals who understand intrinsically how beats work and scenes work, so we usually can feel out the pacing. If you don't feel confident that you have that skin off the get-go, find some other education that might help you guys as far as writing techniques, beats, understanding script analysis, that sort of thing. It could really go a long way to save you a lot of work. That's what a lot of this is. It sounds really, really daunting, but we're basically giving you guys a couple hours to figure out how to save a lot of time and a lot of work.
Also, something that I'll add
yeah.
is a skill that you can't really be taught. You kind of have to do it enough that you get used to it, is knowing when a scene ends. But if you want, like, my opinion on when a scene ends for people that, didn't spend a bunch of college years getting trained in it, think of, there's always a moment where you feel with people around you or even yourself, your eyes kind of roll to the back of your head because you've hit information overload and now you're just asking questions and nothing's happening. The scene's over. You know it's over. You've lost focus. When you lose focus, the audience has definitely lost focus. Bring it back in, push the story forward.
If we happen to catch any of those moments, we'll point it out so you guys can sort of feel where the beat is.
Absolutely.
So we're entering a new scene. It's time for the DM to start coloring things again. Foundry Street is where a lot of manufacturing happens. Sometimes I like to shake it up between actually doing a scripted narration or just sort of doing a description. It depends on who I'm really kind of giving the information to, the players, the audience, or both. This area requires a little bit of coloration, but also requires a little bit of education because it's clear that nobody involved except me understands what this area is. So, Foundry Street is the place in Ravnica. it's just like it sounds. It's where the foundries are, the smelting quarter, industrial district, lots of factories. Also, considering the fact that Ravnica is one perpetual city, all mining enterprises happening in the Undercity have to begin around this area too. So there's giant craters, mining. As far as people that you might see there, lots of goblins, ogres, sort of destitute humans, Viashinu, that are lizard folk that live on Ravnica, but they're a little bit more like raptors than sort of, lizard iguana guys. And these are all the people who have an unfortunate lot in life that employment opportunities are really only acceptable for them to be working in factories. There's also a lot of members of the Rakdos who work here because the Rakdos often provide a lot of hard labor and cheap labor. So if you guys have been doing anything in the campaign to kind of describe who the Rakdos have been yet, this sort of stuff should color it for the audience. Now that we have kind of a setup as to the value of these sort of things, I can go into a colorful explanation. Yes, Ned.
Something that just came up in the Discord chat, so I just wanted to bring it up because, Brian, you talk about it all the time, is we also are all huge consumers of content. We love genre. We love listening to things, watching things, enjoying things across a wide spectrum. And it means that we also understand when the story is turning into a certain genre or a certain style, and we roll with that decision. Red Wentz in the Discord said, studying films and series and how they're edited helps with conducting tabletop role-playing game scenes. That's true from not just construction, but from tone. We know when Brian is taking us into kind of an eerier, creepier section, or when we're in the funny section. Like there's the way the stories fall out and the way Brian gives us those clues, we can adapt and build the whole scene for you as an audience.
And that is 100% because of the skill of the people at my table. I can write for days, but it's them who have the experience and have the familiarity with each other to understand where we are. If you happen to listen to a counterparty, you will notice that we have some episodes that shift violently between genres. And sometimes we have some really, really wacky episodes that are purely comedy based. We have NPCs that are very goofy. And then other times we've had a great deal of success with the drama and intensity of our show, and things drop to a very, very serious level, no jokes at the table, and it's very, very tense. We have even had moments where we've had to take physical breaks from our own recording because we've hit points that are just too hard for us at the table to handle in a particular way.
Brian's made me cry.
Yeah,
Many times.
That's just come from experience. So don't worry about trying to hit that. That will come with the more familiarity you have at your table. But a lot of that has to come with sort of the sort of party aspect from it. But that is because I have the players who can handle that. So if you are a DM and you can't invoke that because you don't have the cast that can handle that sort of range, don't stretch it. Find what they're really, really good at playing and lean into that, because ultimately, again, it's their story. So follow them. So I'm going to give a little bit of a physical description here about Foundry Street. We've kind of set up the value of it, right? We talked in our combat and writing seminar about establishing the value of things so people can rightfully weigh what their weight is in the world and also in the story. You never want people to be able to just sort of disregard things. So now we know what Foundry Street's place is, and people can start judging how that affects things like the gang, the characters. I will then go into a colorful description so that color fills in some lines you guys already know is an established thing. So Foundry Street is loud. Normally it's filled. Oh, wait, sorry. I need to correct myself. It is evening. It is an evening time of day. So as you guys approach in the darkness, you can see all of the foundries and the forges have closed for the day. But their dying embers still glow outside the windows of all the factories. So the ground is lit, not the air. And there is a warm heat that remains emanating throughout the district. Now, cool little coloring. One thing I really like to do is I try never to waste any moment for character development or character enrichment. You have to provide the audience a chance to graft onto your actors or characters that they enjoy. We're now entering a new environment. Ravnica is a very unique situation where people come from different backgrounds and they have different aspirations or values within their own guild. I've just described an environment that has sensory differentiation between the people who it is. So being able to address things like Lorzach as somebody from the Undercity who enjoys dark and damp environment, Brevin as a member of the Selesnya who enjoys cultivating nature and organic foliage. This is not a fun place for you. It's hot, it's sticky, it's dangerous. Fakara, this is where the Boros get their weapons from. These are the people that fuel the engine that is the might of the Boros Legion. You may never have been here before, but you know there are legionnaires hanging out in garrisons outside the situation. This is like getting to see how the donuts are made for you. And
This is awesome.
Yeah. Xenia, as a member of the Izzet League, we have mentioned numerous times how quiet is just sort of painful for you in a way that you just live with sound and clanging and the types of things that other people just can't seem to tolerate. But the forges have all closed for the day, so there might be a bit of a tugging longing for you as you make your way down the streets, as sort of, all that does a great deal of describing to the audience some values about the player, some establishing elements, and allows them to start feeling different things. If they think about the idea, if I'm sitting at home in, I don't know, Wisconsin, and I hear the idea of a dying forge and heat and coals, and I'm like, oh, that just sounds terrible, I may now start to look at how Ned or Andrew are going to react to that and feel a little bit more attached to those people. Whereas if I live in a city, and the idea of hanging around the industrial quarter, hanging around near brick buildings is kind of my bread and butter, I might now start looking at people like Xenia and Fakara and wondering if there's even more connection between those characters and me as a personality. And then any audience member that you can find that grabs onto a particular player like that is going to be an audience member for a long time. And as long as you don't betray them, you've got an audience member for life, life being the life of your show. So you guys go in, it's nighttime. Consider it sort of like a union area. People are sort of making their way back home. I'm going to make the choice that these are not 24-hour-a-day forges. But there is some people hanging out milling in the street, but this is pretty much a work-only environment. Anybody you're going to capture to try and talk to, capture their ear. These are going to be hardworking, tired people, late night workers, maybe people getting ready for some third shifts, some overnight work, some guard duty, some miners, stuff like that. A very, very hard-edged labor working type of place in the city.
So are there bars around? Taverns?
With on actual Foundry Street, there's probably some on the edge.
Okay.
I approach the closest goblin to me, and in Goblin, I say, "Oh, hello, Goblin. You see, I speak Goblin. I am looking for some seedier activity, if you know what I might mean."
Okay, so I'm playing a goblin. I have to make a distinct character choice, so it's different. Brian David Judkins, in reference to Ravnica, and Ravnica has kind of taken some stances on some goblins, being a little bit more New York, being a little bit more Union, being a little bit more gruff. Much different than sort of Nasius, who we made at the beginning, is now we're a little bit up here, we're a little bit, ticked off to be talking to people and all this stuff. What makes you think? What makes you think? Now, Landry is a comedian out here in Chicago. We both studied at some similar comedy schools. So this is an opportunity, because we have this repertoire at the table, is I know and she knows that we can have this sort of improv feed off each other. We're going to play the scene out a little bit, and then this is the perfect moment I want you to talk about possibly trying to get some skills with improv and how it might help. So
Yeah. Let me guess. I know about seedy stuff because I'm a goblin. Is that what this is? You see the little guy walking around
Yes,
with
exactly.
apparently I'm into dirty stuff or something like that. How dare you? How dare you? Coming here when I'm off work trying to get home and deciding that somehow I know about all the crap going on in the city. I happen to be happily married and I got a little kid that I actually care about. I'm toiling away in here to put food on my table for my family, and you're just deciding that I'm a punk. Forget you. Screw you. You Vidalkin. Why don't you go take a dump in the canal?
Like are you talking about pooping in a canal?
Dunk. Not dump. Dunk.
A dunk? Oh, a swim. I am partially amphibious, but I'm not here for that right now. Yes, I do tend to stereotype. It helps me understand people a little bit better. Also, I'm not flirting with you, so congratulations on your marriage. I am curious. I'm on a job, you see,
well,
and there's a
good.
lot of money.
Fine.
Well, fantastic. I don't have regular employment, so I'm a little jealous of you. But yes, you are a goblin, you know, and I know some goblins like to be in gangs, right? There's power in numbers, bargaining power, union power.
Oh, hey. If you're talking about that sort of thing, A, not a part of it. B, you better watch who you go walking around asking about stuff like that around here. Do you know where you are?
No, sort of. Well, but here's what I'm asking, though. Here's what I'm asking. I'm not saying that you're, you know, one of the, you know, part of the gang. But do you know if I were looking for it where I might look?
I mean, I don't know. You got a death note? Like you got a death wish? Like what's going on?
So I want to take this opportunity to kind of set up the consequences of what's going on here, right? I want to create a world that bites back. I want to create some pushback, some danger in the world that we are now. So I'm going to use this opportunity to try and color that a little bit so that, you know, our players and our audience don't think these are the heroes, the enemies aren't real, they're pushovers, whatever.
Don't you know where you are? What do you got, a death wish? You're walking around trying to find Kranko's gang? What is the matter with you? Who told you what this is? Somebody's playing a bad trick on you. Somebody is hoping that you walk home with a stab wound in your stomach. You don't go around here walking around just blatantly asking about Kranko's gang.
What is he saying?
He's telling me I shouldn't be asking about Kranko's gang.
Okay.
But that's who I'm looking for.
I understand.
So you
that.
can help me.
No, I don't want you to find him.
What? Why? I'm here.
So you guys notice right now that Andrew, Ned, and Sarah are doing a fantastic job of just staying out of the conversation. This is a Landry Shine moment. They're going to let her do in, and they're going to follow whatever she does because she's made conscious moments. Keep going, girl.
Yes. Here's the thing. I'm trying to, you know, take this criminal back behind bars.
Okay.
I'm here to protect Foundry Street, to protect you.
What do you mean back behind bars? Kranko's supposed to be in jail.
Oh, yes, he escaped. I don't know if I was supposed to share that information, but he did. So, but you should go home soon after we're done talking.
I'd like to go home right now. If Kranko is out of jail, do you have any idea how bad that is?
Do you have debts?
No, I don't have debts, but his gang's been infighting around here. They're trying to figure out who's going to take over.
Really?
Yeah.
Are there any gang members around here that you know of, some names that I could look for?
I know nothing and would very much like to be able to go home now.
You've known quite a lot so far, so I kind of want to keep picking at you until I get all of the information.
He's starting to shimmy his way around. I know nothing. I don't talk to strangers. I don't talk to strangers at all. I'm out.
All right. Well, give your wife my best wishes.
He goes running off. So, sounds like there's some infighting within Kranko's gang. Sounds like there's some danger.
Lorzak.
What are you guys gonna do?
Landry, that was lovely.
Lorzak. Thank you. There's infighting. So Xenia is like calling out to the group as she's walking back to them, completely unaware of the danger. So you see there's infighting, so that might be a good lead. Infighting in the gang. You know? Like, who's going to take over?
What
Should
do
I
you think?
talk to another goblin?
You get an opportunity to talk to 6 goblins.
Oh.
As
I had
6
a feeling.
goblins come wandering up the street.
Yep.
And they're armed. And they got protective clothing on. Well. Look what we got here. A cow, a
Rude.
plant, a rotten plant, and whatever this thing is. What could you possibly be needing to do around here? You lost?
I think our answer to that question drastically depends on who you work for.
I think the answer to that question drastically depends on whether or not you want to live till tomorrow.
Oh, I have no doubt that I will skewer you and it will be bad. But what I'm curious of is who you work for.
Roll initiative.
Ha!
So if you joined our combat seminar, one of the things we talked about is at what point does combat become necessary? At what point do words have zero value anymore? One of the things in this book is it illustrates the fact that combat is a possibility. If you are not going to create a character that backs down if they're badmouthed to, you better create a character that's willing to throw down. Not waiting, not trying to drag out the scene. No, when the combat hits, it's a lot more energetic. It's a lot more intense to just be like, oh, fighting now. Okay. Makes the audience focus, makes the audience pay attention. Now, come up with a math system to get initiative done. We're now going to get into a brief little combat. We're going to try and figure out how much time you can save in combat, because this is where the biggest time loss is going to be in your recording session. Okay.
This is the worst. I don't say worst. The hardest thing to edit is fights. It just is.
Absolutely.
They are long. You need to shorten them and keep them energetic, and they require a lot of careful construction. And having a cast like ours that spent a lot of time talking about how to do these things gives you the benefit of a faster fight.
Okay. Anybody above a 17?
Yes, a
22.
22.
Usually when we play, we say whoever has the highest dex mod, which I'm going to assume is
Plus
Lorzach.
2. Yeah, Lorzach.
I'm going to assume wrong. Okay, Lorzach, Fikara, Brevin, Landry, did you beat a 3?
I did. But I got a 6.
All right, Xenia, and then your goblins unfortunately make it to the end. So we're about to set up a combat. The best way that you can save time during a combat is just know everything. Know your enemies. You already know a combat is possible. As a DM, know your enemies. Know what your enemies are going to do. Come up with a strategy. We're going to rehash a couple of things we talked about in the combat scenario right here. I'm not going to pull up a map because I don't actually have one prepped for this. That's fine. These goblins are not going to do anything complicated. They're going to run and try and stab these people as many times as they can. So the idea that the goblins are ever going to leave melee range is unlikely. So for the sake of this seminar, we can just plow through it. For players at home, for players in our current game right here, for cast members, I cannot recommend enough learning the very, very simple trick of roll your attack and your damage dice at the same time. Don't wait to hear whether or not your attack landed before you roll damage dice. The difference is this amount of time. Does a 16 hit? Yes. Okay. Find and pick out which dice I need. Roll them. Count. 7 damage.
10 seconds.
That's how much. Now, 10 seconds.
And I'll be cutting both of those pauses.
10 seconds. 5 people. DM. That's a minute per round if you're doing nothing but rolling dice. Not if you're asking about position, not if you're asking about strategizing. That's a minute per round of raw footage. That's an insane amount of time. when you can cut that down into about 10 seconds for everybody just to do their roles. Gives you more time for conversation, gives you more time for strategizing, describing the map, understanding. Those are the things people want to see. Nobody wants to listen to you do math. Nobody wants to listen to you go, well, let me think. I don't know. That's boring audio. Nobody wants to listen to it. Then it simply goes like this. Does a 16 hit? Yes. 6 damage. Go. Then you can spend time coloring it, talking about it. We're going to get into combat. We're going to talk about how to zhazh up combat from an audio perspective. Here we go into initiative order. This is a new beat. This is like walking into the foundry for the first time. Yes, we know these goblins are here. Yes, we know everyone is here. Yes, we know where they are. We're entering a new beat, a new scenario, a new scene. We have to rehash what they see. Letting your audiences know that, yes, combat is starting. Okay, so here you guys are in the middle of the foundry street, Western style. 6 armed guards, goblins, 6 armed goblins with leather jerkins on, and they got somewhere between a short sword and a stabby stick. They look like they are. They look like they pilfered some scrap iron out from the foundries. They look very, very dangerous, and they look ready to do some very, very nasty damage. Now the audience knows what the scenario is, what you're actually fighting. First up, Lorzach.
Lorzach is unarmed, or so it appears, because as he approaches the closest goblin with an outstretched hand, you can watch these calluses form on his index finger, calcifying and extending into the sickening black talon as he sears it into the forehead of the nearest goblin. For a 23 to hit.
The 23 hits.
8 acid damage.
8 acid damage. Quick markdown. Come up with a system where you can do stuff as a DM and take notes and keep people playing. Next up on the list, Fikara.
I'm going to take my maces and get the nearest goblin towards me. Just right hand, left hand. There'll be a 23 to hit and a 7.
Yep. 7 does not hit.
All right, cool. It'll be a total of 12 damage.
Okay. You will have to make a choice as a DM whether or not to announce their hit points, how much information from behind the screen that you want to give. Personally, I recommend revealing as little information as possible. Okay. Because the audience is following the journey of the players, they're not following my journey. I try and limit the audience to as much information as the players have, and therefore limit the players to as much information as somebody not sitting at the table would have when it comes to combat. It creates more mystery. It creates a requirement to pay more attention. It requires the players to interact with the table more, ask more questions, strategize, talk to each other. These are all things that we talked about in our combat seminar, which you can find on demand on the Twitch channel right now. So yes, I had some damage. I'm not telling them what their hit points are. I'm not telling them what their AC is until they do something that I feel like they would have gained information. That's a way during combat you can reward players. Somebody rolls a 14. No, it doesn't hit. Somebody rolls a 15. Then you can say, you've kind of seen the difference between hitting and no. You know that thin line now. And now your players know without telling them, hey, it's 15. That's boring. That's math. Nobody wants to hear math. Sarah.
Just real quick, know the dice that your weapon needs and have those prepared when you're rolling. This may require you to have multiple sets of dice. Welcome to gaming.
Yep. Take the rolls, find a way to characterize everything. If you miss, find a way to characterize the miss without completely invalidating your character. I missed because I'm an idiot. No, I missed because it looked like the goblin took a step back. You can do this as the DM as well. Save your players from downgrading themselves in combat. I miss. She's not going to characterize that because she's bummed she's missed. Yeah. Looks like you got a really good swing in, but that goblin, he's small. He's agile. He just sort of steps out of the way after getting hit with the first one. Moving on. Brevin.
Brevin is sort of excited by what we're dealing with here. He likes a brawl. He feels comfortable with a brawl, and he steps up forward next to Elf Buddy Lorzach. Since
dare
they're
you.
all kind of I stole it from Widget. Next to Elf Buddy Lorzach, since they're all kind of in a group together, and takes a swing with his longsword as he brings his shield forward, ready to protect. For a it's not great. 14 to hit. It's level 1.
14 does not hit.
Okay. And Brevin comes in with the longsword, and he's specifically going for a skewer, but like you said, the goblins are nimble, and as it dodges out of the way, Brevin thinks he might have underestimated these guys.
Yeah, they're dirty. They're dangerous. Next up on the list, Xenia.
Xenia looks at the gobbo that is closest to her, and her eyes turn a shade of icy blue as she casts Ray of Frost directly at it. For a 15?
15 hits.
Yeah. And it takes 6 points of frosty damage, baby.
Okay, so she's managed to drop 1 to 0 hit points. If you're a DM that thinks you've got a colorful way you can do it, sometimes you can describe. When it comes to if there's a large villain or a singular bad guy, I usually tend to characterize how they go down because it's usually very specific. When it comes to like dropping ads and mobs and little guys and stuff like this, again, having players describe how they hit that victory, how they bring it down, and how they win is a great opportunity to A, reward your player with role-playing incentives, but B, it gives them a chance to work on continuing to develop their own character. You can hear how these players describe their actions differently. Xenia is it sorcerer. She's really excited. Landry has been playing this character for a year and a half, so she understands how to describe something with the same sort of frantic energy and excitement that would befit an Is It sorcerer. So I just simply say what has become sort of an industry phrase. How does it happen?
Xenia opens her mouth, and this cold puff of air emits from her, and it travels and strikes the goblin directly in his heart, and you see these shards of ice form all over his body until he's solidly frozen, and then he falls over and shatters into a million pieces.
And this sort of natural reaction is something that you should be capturing on mic. These are the things that are going to make your audience feel like they're more a part of the table, they're more a part of the fun, and this is what's going to get them to attach to you as a personality rather than a player, because that is all Landry, not Xenia. That is Landry coming up with something cool, and everybody recognizes that, so she gets rewarded as a castmate as well as a party player for that sort of stuff. So now back to my thing. Now, one of the things you should be able to hear when it comes back to me, you can hear my energy ramp up. You're the DM. It's your job to keep the pace of the battle. This is a frantic fight on the street. Your job is to bring that energy in your descriptions, keep your players engaged, keep your audiences engaged. Because A, if you're just doing a stream, this can just drop to a quiet mist instantly. We talked about this in the combat seminar. If you're recording, you're going to need this sort of pace to help beat out stuff in between, because your players may have a moment where they get a little distracted or they might get a little soft. So keep the energy up. Consequently, if you're dealing with sort of a really, really personal, dark, sort of high consequence, sad fight, you can bring it way, way down. You can have dark. It rolls away. Dodges, nothing, less description, more sort of mysterious lack of information to put the players in a panic. But for this one, we're in the fight, we're in the street. Here we go. The goblins, they look at one of their buddies get dropped down, and you can see him get this sort of seething rage as they begin to foam. We're gonna murder all over you punks. The first one is going to attack. Again, look at the rules of combat, look at the combat seminar to judge how you're going to attack people. There's 5 of them left. I'm just going to, I'm assuming Xenia is at a little bit of range because she's a range fighter. So first attack is going to go against Lorzach. Does 17 hit?
Disadvantage.
17.
Try again.
Does a 12 hit?
It does not.
All right, Ned, you're getting attacked. Does a 17 hit?
No.
Ah, you bugger. And Sarah, that's going to be a miss with a 3. And
Yes, that
final
is a
attack,
miss.
Brevin, 16 also misses. Boom. I'm in. I know what they're going to roll. Hit, miss, hit, miss. I don't have to ask. I know what their AC is. Keep the pace moving. The more I talk, the less they get to do. Bam. Those are your attacks. The goblins go in. Flurry, 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 flurry. But you guys are wearing armor. Brevin up there with the shield blocking, protecting people. You guys are feeling like you might be able to survive this attack. That maybe these guys maybe aren't quite so tough as they look. Top of the order, Lorzach.
Lorzach, having narrowly avoided the blade, the rusty, like tetanus-encrusted blade of this goblin, staggers back just slightly to emit a noxious cloud of poison gas, and will the goblin please make a Constitution saving throw?
Yes!
Oh!
How?
You got a 1?
Okay, great.
And that is going to be, come on, man, 3 poison damage.
3
You all
poison
know
damage.
that Brad just rolled a natural 20 in the Twitch chat.
Well, he's not playing, so poo on him.
Oh, I'm so proud of you, sweetie.
Next up, Fikara.
All right. I'm going to look at the goblin that I just hit and didn't fall, and I'm going to look, bet you wish you had your magic shiv with you, don't you? And go at him with my maces again with a 20 and a 22.
Both hit.
Awesome. They will take 20 damage.
Total?
Yeah.
How does it happen?
It just one mace brings this little goblin up into the air, and the second just volleyball strikes him directly down into the earth, and you just get that comical poof of yeah, just boom, done.
I roll a d4, taking advantage of a comical moment. He bounces 3 times across the sand.
I skipped
Brevin.
a goblin.
That's comedy, folks. Brevin, you're up. There are 4 left.
Calling back to Fikara, that wasn't Krenko. and then swings at the goblin closest to him, maintaining a 5-foot range from Lorzach. Will a 20 non-natural hit?
Yes.
For 5 points of slashing damage.
Oh, that's cute. Xenia, you're up.
Man, level 1 fighters hit rough.
Xenia looks at the next goblin closest to her, and she says, and now to hurt one of you at a completely different temperature, I'm going to get you some fire, baby.
Wow.
Sends a firebolt at it. Oh, we're at 26.
Wait, let me check. Yeah.
We'll take 4 points of fire damage.
Oh, it's still up. You guys are slightly chipping away. So as you guys can hear, this one of the things we talked about in the combat seminar is kind of understanding what type of fight this is. This is one of those scenarios where it's not pre-planned. If these guys were playing, I don't know, a pack of wizards with no health and no defense, this could have very quickly turned into a dangerous dwarfing fight, where they quickly realized that, hey, these gangs are really, really, really dangerous. We need to be considerate how we approach. This is a little bit different. These guys are seasoned players. They've got high AC, and they're clobbering the snot out of these goblins. So we shift into a validating fight. We don't waste a lot of time trying to win. We just give them a chance to color themselves and plow through these enemies, because this is now a fight that empowers the players and allows them to feel a little bit more about what their character feels like in a positive moment, what their skill sets are, that will ultimately continue to grow your characters, and they'll continue to do this more and more and more and more as they level up and gain new abilities. So now it's my turn with the goblins. 4, man, these guys are just super, super seething. Now, these guys have been kind of pounding the crap out of these goblins. These goblins have a little bit of they have some abilities that I don't always come out the gate with the powerhouse, especially if they're getting pushed back. You want some give and some take and some tempo and stuff. So we're going to implement an ability now called Fury of the Small, which will make these goblins seem like maybe they're not going to get pushed over quite so well. I'm just going to real quick. Boom. So the goblins, however, not being smart, haven't really picked up on Brevin's defensive ability. So they're going to attack Lorzach once. Are they going at disadvantage?
I'll let you know when you tell me the number.
No, in this particular case, you have to announce it beforehand.
Yes, I will protect Lorzach.
For fighting style protect, you unfortunately have to say before. The total is an 11, which will miss. The second goblin will attack Brevin for a 17.
Will not hit.
The second goblin will attack Brevin again for an 18.
Yeah, it meets. Fine.
All right, there we go.
Fine.
And the last one will attack Vakara for a 19.
That will hit.
Ha 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 ha! We'll get you, you punks! Yeah.
Ah, my shin.
They will all implement Fury of the Small, which means that they will add their current level in damage to your attacks as they go ham. Ned, you will take 7 points of stabby damage. Vakara, you will take 4 points of stabby damage.
Ah, my shin.
As a level
that's really
1
bad.
character, you hate to see that.
Fury of the Small is dangerous at low levels. Ned, you're going to need tetanus shots at the end of this fight. Top of the order, Lorzach.
Okay, as a bonus action, Lorzach is going to cast Healing Word on Brevin, and Brevin is going to regain 6 hit points. This emerald mist of green mana encircling his Selesnian companion and knitting shut the wounds inflicted by these tetanus-encrusted stabby blades that they've salvaged from these forges. And as an action, he is going to sear another bolt of disgusting, acidic slime into the forehead of the next goblin. That's going to be not enough to hit with an 11. He sort of wags a finger and it just grazes right past the nearest goblin's head.
Their height is deceptive. Next up, Vakara.
Oh, sorry. I was entranced by what Lorzach was saying. I'll go after the next one and be like, all right, let's go. That will be a 13 and a 10. And they looked taller than they were.
Oh no, you guys expended all of your energy on the first volley. You didn't you don't have the endurance. You're running out of gas so quickly.
Right. Like the shot to the shin just really screwed up how I was stepping forward with my attack, and I just miss it.
What's the matter, Boris? Soldier, you running out of gas?
Maybe.
Or is it a shank with you? That's
With
a beef
what?
joke for anyone who understands cuts of beef.
There you go.
Moving on.
That was good.
Now,
It was
great
not good.
joke.
Don't
That was
count
great.
that.
That was brilliant.
Likely that will get cut out. Just so
Yeah.
you know.
This happens a lot, people at home. We do have great jokes as a group that you don't get to hear because they
Yeah, that
kill
wasn't
the
one of
story.
them.
No, it was not.
Oh,
Andrew.
I thought it was great, Andrew.
All right, we are now wasting recording time and an excellent example of bad pacing. Brevin, you are up.
Brevin, a little ashamed at his recent not doing that great or damage when he does connect, takes a swing at the closest goblin and will whiff with a 10.
Oh no.
Oh. Pathetic. Xenia.
So Xenia, 1000% just entertaining herself at this point, decides to try another tactic and goes for Acid Splash. Tries to hurl some bile from deep within her straight into a goblin's face.
From downtown.
Then for a 25.
Oh my god! What? You're level 1!
No, I'm just rolling really well. And my spell, whatever. And for 6 points of acid damage.
How does it happen as Xenia is solo destroying this fight for you guys?
So Xenia just vomits up this ball of bile that splashes all over the goblin's face, and his skin just melts away and pours off of him, and there's just a pile of goblin in the street.
Okay, so on the
Cool.
goblin's turn, now that half of them are dead. The other three happen to look at each other. They disengage freely with nimble escape, and they begin booking it away. One of
Feel
the
like we
things One of the things that we talked about in combat is noticing at what point the fight is no longer valuable for the enemy. This happens to be printed in the book, so it's a little bit of a cheat, but understanding your enemies, what value does it have for them after half of them got cleaved down in 2 to 3 rounds for them to fight till they die? They don't have to. They're out of here. They have other things to do. They have other objectives. They have other statuses to maintain, which is the value of Krenko's gang. So they're going to run for it.
I feel like we got to follow those goblins.
I agree
Agreed.
that we must follow those goblins.
Are you going to follow them, or are you going to chase them down and kill them before they can get away?
I think we need to question one of them. So
Correct.
Brevin would be in the chase down and try to take one captive.
Yeah.
Great.
Agreed.
Simple question like that is a way for me to inform the players that there are options they may not have concerned, that they have not considered, that will actually move the story into a more rewarding experience. Them chasing down some goblins and kill them is just going to repeat the beat that we just did. This is going to open up some new avenues as now the audience is going, oh, there might be more. Now the audience needs to stay longer because the story is going to change. Be careful of false endings. Be careful of false resolutions. Yes.
Something I'm going to bring up because I even just felt it, and it's because we're at the end of a long week, but it's something that's very important. Fights are the time that you can lose the most energy because you stop doing things as a collective and you start waiting for your turn. It's very important as a player and as a storyteller inside one of these that you try to stay engaged with your party and you try to build whatever it is your character's doing off what you're seeing around you so that you maintain connection to the greater overall story of the fight, because fights can last 20-30 minutes of edited audio in a podcast, and you need to make sure that they're engaging by making sure that you remain engaged, and that is very difficult. And especially on a live stream, you see it all the time, where as soon as you get into combat, you see people's eyes roll back in their heads as they glaze out, and you need to find it how it is you can stay engaged with the fight, however that might be.
I mean, like, I know I usually try to stay engaged with like banter of either a fellow player or banter with an NPC that I'm fighting, just because then I feel more connected and more invested in what's going on.
And also think about what you're going to do on your turn before it comes up.
It
Yeah.
really helps me too, this like bringing it back to taking notes and writing notes. Like I like to, anytime a descriptor comes up, any kind of thing like that, I just write down different words so I can pull on them and make it as colorful as possible when it's my turn, you know? So notes help me the whole time.
Cool note. Definitely. Yeah, I think both Landry and Andrew do really, really fantastic jobs of coloring their combat, and it can really help. Three notes. One, side note, if you're going to do a live stream, you have to keep in mind that probably the worst thing about doing a live stream, that is the absolute worst thing to watch, is Landry and I are having a conversation between the two of us. Andrew, Ned, and Sarah are doing the right thing by staying out of it so the character gets a chance to shine, so the story can develop in a particular way. But then what we have on camera is we have 2 people talking and 3 people sitting around looking bored. Do you really want to watch like 3 people on camera not doing anything? No. So that is a challenge that you guys have to figure out how to engage. That's going to depend on your dynamic as a party, but just keep in mind of that trap. Going back to this combat, be aware of false endings that accidentally end your show before you intend them to do. Say, for example, that the party happened to have just decimated all of these goblins. Well, they technically wouldn't have decimated because there were only 6. What if they just kicked the snot out of all of these goblins, killed them in the street? Where do they go? Now they've gone to Foundry Street. They met members of Krenko's gang. They killed them. What do they do now? Find other members of Krenko's gang? It's the same beat. They have no other lead. They can either just go somewhere else. If they go somewhere else, that's the same as heading there first without wasting all their time doing here. You accidentally end up taking this entire scenario of Foundry Street and turning it into a giant waste of narrative time. Victory does not have to mean killing everybody in the street. This would have created a false ending if they just killed everybody. It would have created a resolution, an end to an arc, and then you would have been left dead in the dirt. Now you have to get the audience to reinvest in the story again. And I don't even really know how to do that well. It's a monumental challenge, and something that tiny could make 3 to 5% of your audience just decide, well, that was done. Cool. Doesn't mean they don't like your show. They might just feel it's over. A great way to spot this, if you ever go back and watch The Truman Show with Ed Harris and Jim Carrey, my favorite part of that movie is at the very, it's the last line of the movie. At the very, very end of the movie, he goes through the door, everything leaps. It shows all the people they've been following, watching throughout the world, and they're clapping, and they're like, yay, yay, yay. Oh my God, that's so amazing. And then it shows the two guys who are working in like the delivery dispatch, the two guys, like the union guys who are sitting in the thing and they're watching on the little tiny TV, and everybody claps. And the last line of the movie is they go, "Ah, that was good. Let's see what else is on." And then they clip. Fantastic line. And if you can just drill that line in your brain, and you ever hit a moment in your story where you think about that line, you've hit a false ending and you need to rework how you do it. Right now, they could have killed all those goblins and gone, right, that was cool. So what else is on? What else is there to do? Bam, false ending. It's bad. It's just bad. It's just bad resolution. You have a long story to tell. Find a way to continuously tether it together. You're going to hear that Encounter Party continuously ends on cliffhangers. It's not a unique writing trick. People have been doing it since Nickelodeon's back in the 30s. It's a way to keep your audience engaged. It's a way to keep your audience thinking forward. It's a way to keep your audience invested. Just a quick note again, based on the combat. If you guys remember our combat scenario, this is a great real-world example about those story narrative roles that people have played. Ned Donovan playing Brevin was a character who was throwing the shield around. He was using the protection. He ended up being that character who told me, no, we do not accept what you brought. We are in control of our own story, not you. And then by also throwing protection and aiding people, he also happened to dip into the free do-over role, the forgiveness. He gets that sort of support thing that says, oh, wait a minute, the random chance at redemption. Lorzach was doing a phenomenal job of playing the character who kind of oversees everything. He sort of went into the front line at the beginning, then he recognized the need to heal. He was sort of looking at the big picture, which was the safety of the party, and also was the person who was like, hey, maybe we should just let them go. We ended up sort of, Fakara and Xenia ended up playing sort of dual roles on the characters went, no, this is what we're doing. Ned says, no, we say this instead. And they just kind of came in with damage after damage after damage. Then you have these characters that, at least for this particular scene, have adopted these narrative roles. We now look to Brevin to be a character who's going to draw some lines in the sand. We look to Lorzach to be a character who's going to inform us about what we need to be paying attention to. And we're going to be looking at Xenia and Fakara to tag team together to get stuff done. Now we're going to finish out the scene and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So you guys, I'm going to need, well, we're going to have to deal with this in one of two ways. You can either try and rush them down or keep pace, or you can try and follow at a distance and perhaps see where they're going. Just going to reset my camera.
Brevin is really not a follow at a distance kind of guy. I'm not going to lie. He is a chase him down and tackle him kind of human.
Yeah, I'm not really sneaky at all. So if we're trying to be sneaky, I'm it's probably not my choice.
Okay. And Xenia doesn't really have tact.
Come on, guys.
I'm still gonna Lorzach if it's any consolation to you. Please feel free, Brevin, to run and tackle. I will be running at a safer distance and keeping them in my eyesight.
Got to make some decisions.
All right. Well,
Persuasion rolls, persuasion rolls, persuasion rolls. Or bring
Brevin's chasing. Brevin's chasing.
You know what? I'll stay back. Well, safe distance. Because
Brevin's chasing alone, I guess.
I'm going.
We're
to
chasing.
So
yeah,
I'm
we're
gonna.
just chasing less fast.
So I'm gonna call out this choice right now because I think you're commandeering the story. I think you're
Okay.
commandeering the party by doing this is what my character would do instead of recognizing the sort of narrative role as your players are starting to take a second to think out. We want to keep the energy of the scene. I understand that. We want to keep that. It's important to have a sort of party dynamic where you when you're at a table, either at your I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the audience now.
Yes.
Whether you're at a table playing for fun or playing professionally or for entertainment, you really, really, really want to be conscientious of making a decision for another player. It's really just not, it's just not good juju. It's not good for the table dynamic. So be conscious of that. And that's sort of the narrative consequence of people who just sort of, well, this is what my character would do. It disregards the choices other people are making, and it often throws your story into a difficult situation where people now need to make the choice to support you rather than have what their character would do. And we saw Andrew feel forced to make that decision because his role to keep the story going superseded what his character would have done. So be conscientious of stuff like that. If you guys need to take a half moment to talk about something, the DM's role is to bring the energy back up. So take half a second and think it through.
in the scant few seconds they have, as the goblins scramble down the street toward safety, or so they hope, Lord Zatch manages to roll a 16 on persuasion and say that the safest bet is to follow at a distance and stick to the shadows.
And wait to see where it is that they go and who it is that they contact.
Well, with Brevin's 15 against it, I guess he listens.
Shadow time, baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will hang back because I should not roll stealth.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys, right, that's the thing. If you're going to travel in a group, you have to make stealth rolls. If somebody's going to go ahead, only they have to make a stealth roll. Those of you wearing armor have it at a disadvantage.
I didn't roll well.
You're being sneaky. Clang, clang.
Yeah.
clang.
I'm wearing chain armor.
Okay.
I am-
The elf rolls a 10.
Me too.
Okay.
I rolled a 2.
God.
I rolled a 5.
Well, as a DM, I don't have notes how to handle this situation. Sorry, folks.
So average
I
roll
don't
of
know
8.
how to handle crappy players.
But wait, when
Um,
we fail by being sneaky, we have to rely on our ranger abilities.
Yeah, which we don't have.
which you don't have.
So
It looks like stealth is not going to be very practical.
Huh?
What's the plan, clan?
Can we try?
I'm not going to say that you betray yourself. I'm going to say that you very quickly get the realization that there's not a lot of people out right now. Any sound they're going to assume is you.
understanding that the crowd of people that's joining him in the shadows is just going to slow him down. Lord Zatch tries to rely on his abilities as a tracker in order to sort of follow their path and roll survival for a 20.
Ooh.
Brilliant. What we're going to do here is we're going to recognize the character's failure, but we're going to give them every chance they can to pull themselves out. So rather than making the focus of the story a punishment and trying to make them understand how bad they are at rolling dice, this is not in the plan. There's nothing scheduled about tracking these guys after they run away, but your players have come up with a clever solution to dig themselves out of a hole. This is why it's so important to have those skeletons instead of trying to plan out exactly how the scene goes. You fight until they get down to 3, they run away, you stealth keep them back. Well, what do you do when your players don't role to play out your script. Give them a chance to do it. This is a fantastic way. It's justified. It came from something. It's not arbitrary. You're not offering them something to, well, why don't you guys roll perception? Oh, you rolled over an 8. Yeah, you did it. That feels like false stuff to like keep going. This is justified. This I can work with. This everybody can work with. It might feel a little less valuable than anything else they might have been able to do, but it's still justified. It still keeps you going. Yes, it's nighttime. There ain't nobody else's footprints to mistake them for because everybody else is leaving. They're going that way. You can track them.
So as long as Lorzach made his roll, even though somebody might have rolled a 0.
Yes.
Okay.
Moving on. You find the tracks moving their way forward towards a warehouse.
Ooh, warehouse.
Lorzach,
Row of warehouses.
Oh.
and we feel fairly confident that they have hidden themselves inside.
Inside one of those warehouses.
Do we know which one? What do we roll to figure out that one?
Yeah, you might have to take a look at them.
Per.
Everybody pay attention. This is going to be a clever way that I use to validate a player and give them a reward for something only they can do. Investigate the warehouses.
Okay. I will investigate the warehouse. Says with the
Can I
12.
join?
With a 12.
Anybody can investigate.
A 12.
15.
10.
As you guys go walking by, you happen to notice that these warehouses belong to the Boros. That this is where they store some weapons and some equipment. And as you're walking by, you see Boros insignia, Boros insignia, Boros insignia. Fakara.
Yeah.
On the second warehouse, you happen to notice the Boros insignia on that warehouse is sort of degraded and tarnished.
Okay. Which is not usual for the Boros. Might be this warehouse, because the Boros insignia is different and almost non-existent, which is really odd, because I remember having to do that on the warehouses at my district, and I ended up painting a whole bunch of doors with the insignia, so they really do have people that do that.
It's a very, very simple description. Sarah, as an expert player, as an expert character actor, immediately understood what I was doing. And it's a simple enough concept for the audience to grab onto. Even if they don't immediately spot it with her, they immediately comprehend it after her. And what you've done is you've turned a simple perception check into story development. Now your audience knows so much more about the Boros. They know, based on Fakara's description in the beginning about how her outfit was a little bit too clean, they've already had that little bit of information about their military. Everything's got to be polished. So some of your more attentive audience members are going to instantly remember that because they've kept that in mind. Any audience member who's grafted themselves onto Fakara already are going to already have that in mind. So you've rewarded audience members for being how they feel is ahead of the curve. And anybody who feels like they were behind the curve immediately understands that description and feels like they've immediately caught up to Fakara. Simple, 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 simple thing that does so much to validate the observation and the character work of Sarah and validates every single audience member listening to your thing. Very, very simple and easy to do stuff like that by just allowing your characters to be rewarded for knowing themselves. Very clean. Yes. So you have identified a warehouse that very mysteriously has a Boros symbol that is very curiously not polished.
Only one entrance.
Well, the front of the warehouse is a giant double door. And there is a series of tracks that lead in through the double doors where people probably wheel carts. As you peek around the sides of the buildings, there's a door here and there's a door on the other side. Personal entrances that people probably enter and exit unless they're actually transporting stuff in.
Okay.
Windows?
Lord-
There are a row of windows stretching all the way around the outside of the warehouse. They are about 30 feet up off the ground. The warehouse itself is about 40 feet high off the ground. An indeterminate length because you guys haven't walked that yet, but wide, it's about 60 feet. If you happen to have a Boros member who knows the exact length of her gate, as she is required to based on her marching orders.
Lorzach, for one, is interested in checking out these personal entrances rather than having to march through two giant double doors.
See, Fikara was thinking we could just throw Xenia on top of the roof, maybe. I don't know.
Could?
I don't know, maybe.
I like that idea.
Isn't Xenia like tall?
This
yeah,
would
but it
also
doesn't mean she's heavy.
That tall.
cute, funny, okay to leave in the podcast, but this is a clear line that's going to derail us. So as the DM, my job is to step in and say, that's not how throwing mechanics work. That won't work. Very, very funny. Try something else.
All right. After
Is with the
understanding
side door concept.
physics, the side doors.
And Lorzach will sidle around to examine the side door, the little personnel entrance.
The near side or the far side?
The near side door.
Okay. You head to the near side door. Now, as a DM, even if everything I needed is actually on the far side door, having Andrew go up to this door for myself to just go, nope, and then have him go around the other side and then actually pick up the event that's about to happen when he goes to the door is nonsense. As a DM, make sure you cut out repeat actions just because it satisfies a map. You can flip a map any day. You can do whatever you want. Be prepared to not tell a character no, just so they can say yes at the appropriate spot if it's pretty similar. So technically what was about to happen is on the far side. I don't care. We're going to make it happen here so we save more time. You approach the door. Are you going to manipulate it in any way?
Yeah, seeing as it's likely a hideout for the remnants of a very dangerous gang of goblins, Lorzach is going to do his best to check for traps.
You.
Give me a perception check.
Great. Man. A 9.
System.
You do not anticipate any traps.
All right. Is it unlocked?
It is, I think for the sake of the recording, it is unlocked.
Lorzach will...
Because I don't know as a DM whether or not a locked door will create a seriously restrictive puzzle, whether or not they have like the access to do it. I may put a trap or like a magical glyph on it because we have people with Arcana or people with enough HP to like take a trap. But I don't know if I have a party that's particularly skilled at unlocking a door. So that may be something that you feel like it's just a single roll that it might actually take like 20 minutes out of your recording time. So I'm going to say no, it's not locked. And that creates some mystery.
And Lorzach is going to, as cautiously as he can, crack open the door and peer through to get a sense of who's inside and how many.
You crack open the door slightly and you peer in, and you can see that it's actually pretty dark in there. It's nighttime. There doesn't seem to be hardly any lights on.
As a dude with superior dark vision, how heavily does that impact a drow?
You see that there are boxes everywhere, haphazardly stacked. So being able to peer more than about 15 feet is a challenge. But you have superior dark vision up to 120 feet, right? So time to reward somebody for their character creation. You see a faint glow on the far side emanating over a small stack of boxes. And there is just sort of, there's an echoey quiet, right? So if there was any sound, A, you might have difficulty placing it, or B, sound may dissipate before it actually reaches a reflective surface.
Okay.
But you are aware that there is some light from behind you, so you have to be cautious as you enter that building if you are trying to be quiet.
Great. Relaying what he's discovered to his group of other little find brokers, Lorzach is going to creep his way inside. Would you like a roll? Okay. He absolutely nails it with a 7.
You get barely inside, and from the far wall, give me a perception check.
Okay. A 17.
You hear what sounded like a conversation that immediately stops. What was that?
Sort of forecasting the consequences of this, he very quickly sort of gestures for people to follow him inside.
Do we want to be silent, or should one of us act as a decoy?
I tell you what,
limited hit points. Please don't do that.
We still have a little bit of time in the seminar, so why don't you guys take a quick hot second to strategize a plan of action here. Okay. And we're actually going to pull up the map for Krenko's Way to do some walkthrough, give some combat advice on some cool things you can do, how you can color this to be really, really exciting. And what you're about to see is the decision that we made to like really, really change the flavor of this fight, what these guys are about to experience. So I'm going to position you guys where you are. Sarah, I know you had mentioned that I had to control you. So I'm gonna put you guys on the map for you. Ned, your character is going to be green. Xenia, you're going to end up being blue because you are a Vidalcan. You guys should have permission to manipulate your own tokens. Everybody, thank you for pausing with us just for a brief moment as we get this set up. And Lorzach, I'm just going to make you a skull and bones because you're poisonous. And you guys can position yourselves anywhere in this front line. The program we're using for a map, this is called Roll20. It is a free-to-use program that gets a lot better if you're willing to shell out some coin for it. But this map I actually drew myself. This is a map from the actual book that I had difficulty reproducing in a PDF, so I just opened Photoshop and redrew it myself. We used Roll20 because we can sort of stream it while we're on here. It's not my favorite program. I think it takes a lot of work. If you guys are planning on recording a podcast for narrative and for entertainment, I would really not rely on this system to suggest anything moves fast. But if you guys just want to play online, this is a fantastic way that I've used in past years to stay in touch with some of my friends who have moved across the country. So I would recommend it. Landry, I'm going to move you here. You guys are just inside the main wall. Okay, so they already know. We've already given some description to Andrew, but we're entering a new scene, so I have to reset my setting, let everybody know that a new event is about to happen. You guys all step inside and see exactly what Andrew saw. It's dark. There are boxes everywhere. It's very quiet. That's sort of cavernous quiet. You step in under a catwalk that you see stretches the entire length of the warehouse. Immediately in front of you are a set of metal stairs that lead up to that catwalk. As of right now, there are boxes in numerous places. Any light that Lorzach may have seen is out. Nobody has dark vision except for Lorzach, do you? Do you have dark vision, Landry?
No, I took my hand away because I was thinking about bringing up Frank, and then I didn't.
Okay.
So for those watching, Frank is dancing lights.
For right now, it's dark. It's still for Andrew. Your attempt to kind of get everybody in there may have allowed things to shuffle. That light that you think you might have saw across the way is now out.
Yeah.
You know that there are enemies in here, so I'm going to make you roll initiative, and we're going to go in order.
Great.
Actually, for the sake of expediency, for the recording and the effects of the seminar, we're just going to keep the one from the old thing. So, Lorzach, Vakara, Brevin, Xenia. Don't be afraid to maintain initiative rolls from previous. If you guys are like going through a dungeon or something like that, anything you can do to save time without losing storytelling value, don't feel bad to implement it. Okay, so Lorzach.
All right, Lorzach, as an action, is going to hack up this cloud of spores that suddenly alight and drift above the heads of each of his companions. This bioluminescent light sheds in a radius of 10 feet around each of them, so they can now see. However, they are also now huge targets.
Utterly.
He knows that I can't see in the dark, but he's doing the best he can to help. And as a bonus, nope, never mind. He doesn't have that yet. So that's the action, and Lorzach is going to creep towards the light that he had seen by his total movement speed of 30 feet. Is that north or south on this map?
The light that you've seen would be directly west.
Directly west.
I'm sorry. You're in difficult terrain because there's boxes everywhere.
All right. 5 foot squares?
Yes.
Okay.
So this combat is now completely different because of several things. One, we talked about using the map to make things difficult. Also, Andrew kind of gave me a freebie by casting this light. Now, as an audience member, you're worried about several things. There's an enemy you know nothing about. Your players don't know anything about, but you know those goblins went in here, and you know those goblins are going to be able to navigate the area. Now your players are walking around with a literal target on their back. This is a different scenario than we had before. We're not superpowering our players here and letting them literally carve their way through goblins. Now we've dwarfed them. Now they're in an environment that they aren't suited for, with an enemy they can't see. They're already slightly injured. This is a much different type of battle that tells a much different story. Gonna reset my camera real quick. Next up is Vakara.
How far up, like how high is the catwalk?
Catwalk is 30 feet up.
Okay, so jumping down from the catwalk would be not a good idea.
No.
Okay.
As a player, don't try and do acrobatic-y cinematic things to make it sound cooler. It doesn't, especially if you're like a front-range fighter. Sometimes in D&D and sometimes in narrative gameplay, the best thing you can do is play fair. And by that means just play straightforward. Because
Right.
sometimes your audience member doesn't want you to try and be creative. They want you to be practical.
Right. I was just wondering if that was an option, which not a good idea. Okay. I will just move forward next to Lorzach
Okay.
and kind of duck between, or duck behind a box as much as I can, because I figure Lorzach knows what he's doing.
Sounds good. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to control you. So here.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm sorry. I know that I have to control you because Brad's running your board on that side. Brevin.
Brevin is now a beaconed target and doesn't want to get anywhere near Lorzach because he's afraid that Lorzach will now be beaconed as well. And so Brevin will decide if he's going to be beaconed, then he might as well try and draw attention to help his compatriots figure out where people are. And Brevin is going to move forward. You said it's all difficult terrain?
Yes.
And Vakara, you're in red?
Yes.
Okay. So Brevin's going to move up to here loudly in his scale mail and not yelling like, look at me, but like moving in a way that he knows it will draw attention. so as to draw that attention on behalf of his compatriots, and he'll take the dash action to move up to here.
Sounds great. Again, whether he intends it or not, Ned, playing Brevin, has taken the job of the character who's looked at this scenario, looked at the danger. There's an enemy in here we can't see. We now have targets on our back. They are not in control. And he's taken the literary role of the combat character who says, no, I don't accept this. For the sake of my team, this is not how this is going to play. It's a super powerful move. He's not running into the dark so he can solo. He's running into the dark with a plan because he thinks as a teammate, he can make this work. Might work, might not work, but at least the plan is justified. Much different than him trying to run in and tank and spank, which means you just run up into melee lanes and slap each other until somebody's hit points drop to 0. He's going to run up. Landry, you are up.
Xenia just takes one step further into the room, and she casts Dancing Lights, aka Frank. But instead of creating a humanoid feature, she uses the fact that he can be 4 kind of lantern-sized orbs of light. And as a bonus action on her turn, she sends an orb 60 feet away from her, north, south, east, and west, to see if she can illuminate anything a little bit better for the rest of the party.
How much? How wide is the radiance?
10-foot radius.
Okay. So if I was on a map, I would be able to draw that stuff. Unfortunately, it's a great move, but we don't really have the time to sort of deal with that because we're being instructional right now. So a total of 40 square feet interspersed around the middle of the room is trying to light up as much as you can. Now, is that a concentration-based ability?
No. No. Is it? I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I should always assume that it's a concentration one if it's one that sticks around,
Up to a minute.
Yeah.
As a DM, that you got to have a pretty clear understanding of the rules and stuff like that, so you don't accidentally provide advantages or disadvantages for your players without understanding. She has to keep concentration to maintain this. If she gets into a situation where she needs to drop it, the reason it's important to maintain this is because it may create an exciting cinematic moment when it happens. Might not. Something to keep in mind is a possible prep for a trigger. Now, we get to the bottom of the initiative order. Nothing happens. Top of the round. A lot of mystery. Didn't say they are going anywhere, didn't say anything. Just letting people know without getting information that you're in combat and there ain't nobody around to fight at this exact moment. One of the scariest things you can do to a team in combat when they're fighting something is give an enemy and say, on their turn, they disengage and move back 6 spaces.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
What do they know that your players don't know? That's all the thing. So right now we have a great situation where the enemies know stuff that the players don't know. And every turn they can't help but give more information. And every turn I try really hard to give 0 information back. Top of the order, Lorzach.
All right, as a bonus action, Lorzach is going to move his one non-dedicated orb of light up to 60 feet to illuminate this cubicle that's to the west of him on the map.
If you click and hold down, you'll make a pinging thing.
So, that guy.
Yeah. You're going to send it through the door?
Yeah. It goes,
Yeah.
a wisp of bioluminescent light that's lighting up this here cubicle.
Looks like there might be sort of like an office in there.
All right.
Buddy?
You know,
What's that?
Ned, with your line of sight, you don't see anybody.
Lorzach is going to creep closer through the difficult terrain of these boxes, 5, 10, and 15 feet. Right there.
What is your passive perception, my friend?
My passive perception is 16.
Ho-ho! With an 18, successfully stealthing. As soon as you step around the box, there is a goblin who is waiting to attack you. And my fault for wasting time because I did not prep the goblins. One sweet moment. I've been playing this all weekend. I know right where they are.
Know where they are.
I know where they are. Rah. It's giant. Haha, hiding behind the boxes. You get attacked. Oh, for a 22.
Yeah, that's
Oh. Hey, man, as a DM, you're going to take 6 stabby damage. Oh, sometimes, look, I'm telling a story. I want them to win, but sometimes I feel really good getting some attacks in there.
Man, at level 1,
You snuck
level
around.
1 characters
Fury of the
die.
Small. Yeah. Stabbing you right up under the rib cage.
dang.
level 1 characters die, and I miss action search.
Yeah.
Okay.
I miss my boots
Fakara,
of
you're up.
speed.
Yeah.
Fakara, you hear a tiny scream, and then, whatever type of scream a weed makes.
Unnecessary burn.
That's you.
I'm going to go to the noise and be prepared to hit whatever is making that noise. The not stabby noise, the screamy
Yep.
stab.
You run around the side of a big box. You see a goblin shanking your buddy Lorthatch.
Cool. I'm going to hit that goblin. With a 17 and a 16.
Both hit.
Excellent. That will be 9 and 6, so 15 damage.
How does it happen?
Both maces, both sides of the head. Boom.
I love how just your wind up informs me everything that's about to happen. You come around the corner and you smash you mash a goblin into muck. Brevin, you're up.
Brevin does not like that there are goblins stabbing people, and also doesn't think that getting into a clump is a good idea because goblins tend to throw things like bombs. So Brevin is going to run forward 15 feet to, where am I? One right here. Do I see anything new over by these boxes?
What's your passive perception?
11.
You do not.
Oh,
I really wish I had a camera on my dice. We can't do it with the current setup because I want people to understand that I don't cheat my dice rolls.
Brian,
If you
Brian.
decide to make that choice, honestly, if you decide to make that choice as a DM, many people do it, especially with new players and young players. We've all rolled a natural 20 and fudged it into a 7 because we don't want to kill that kid who's playing for the first time. We understand how that works. If you are playing a game and you are dedicated to the investment in a particular character and you are dedicated into the pacing of a story, and in order to satisfy that, that requires you to fudge a roll. That choice is up to you to make. You just got to figure out how to sell it. At Encounter Party, we made the decision that we are going to play hardcore. The dice are going to say what the dice say. If anybody dies, they die. We felt in order to create the severest amount of stakes that we wanted for our story, in order to make things weigh as much and have as much value as we did for our brand of storytelling, we do not fudge the dice. We bring it hard. That doesn't mean you have to. That doesn't mean that you can't, as a DM, whisper, don't tell anybody. Fudge those dice rolls for the sake of your storytelling. That's why you have screens. Don't be ashamed to do it. That's my freebie. Go ahead.
If there's no one by these boxes, then Brevin is going to cross this. Is the whole floor difficult terrain? When do I leave difficult terrain?
The entire floor. I have not drawn every single box. There's boxes everywhere.
Got it. Then I'm going to cross this center track and stop here, seeing what I can see.
the minute you cross that track, you receive an attack of opportunity from a goblin who is hiding in the box that you could not notice with your passive perception. You rolled a 22 for stealth.
Yeah,
Oh.
sure.
But he
That's
will only
legit.
roll a 7 to hit you. So you'll go, huh, and move out of the way, and you just hear,
Well, then instead of finishing my move, can I turn around and attack him?
no, you decided the move. You
Sure.
can't get an attack of opportunity if you don't make the move.
No, but I'm saying, like, can I have only moved 5 feet instead of finishing the 15? Because I
No.
feel someone stabbed me.
No, you made the declarative stance to move.
All right.
You know, nobody plays D&D and goes, I move 5 spaces. I move
But-
5 feet.
In those 15 feet, a lot can change,
You
Brian.
move 15 feet away and you don't get stabbed. Be happy about it.
And then Brevin will yell, "There's one of them over there, and I can't figure out why I can't turn around."
Xenia.
Turn around.
Xenia rubs her hands on her pants really, really furiously to start sparking electricity and zaps a firebolt at this goblin right here.
Go for it. I need you to move up 1 space in order to have line of sight, though. 1 space to your left. Again, easy fix. Don't punish your players. Don't be like, oh, you can't do it. You're not there. Just help your players. Set your players up for success. What'd you roll?
I crit failed, friend.
Ah.
I gave you as much help as I could. You missed. It is now their turn. Now, pacing. I could do this dance all freaking day. We could run around. We could spend 4 hours trying to hide goblins hidden in the thing. We've already hit the moment. We've already hit the fact that they're hiding. We've already kind of gotten as much succulent goodness as we can out of this scenario. Time to start bringing the actual threat. Time to move the fight forward. Nobody wants to see them encounter goblins one at a time. We've already done that. By the time you hit, it's rule of 3. By the time you hit the 3rd one, it's familiar. And if it's not a joke, it's boring. Okay? So this goblin is going to run up and attack Fakara because he thinks that is the easiest target in his current position. And another one.
Ah,
uh,
it just appears.
2, 3. Ah, shoot. He's not going to make it. No, he's not going to make it. We're going to do this. And then, so 2 goblins come running out of the office who were hiding behind the wall, just barely avoiding the light. I can turn these guys. They come out of the office this way. There looks to be one of them is a little bit bigger than the other one, who's kind of keeping one in front. So these 2 goblins come out, and there looks to be a bigger one who's kind of geared up a little bit, and a smaller goblin who looks like maybe the ones you were fighting, and they just sort of come out like, Fakara, you're going to get attacked
Okay,
for a 19.
that will hit.
You will take 6 stabby damage.
Ah,
Moving on, top of the order, Lord Zatch.
Feeling the knife slide between his ribs, Lorzach whirls to get a look at his assailant, only to see Fakara crush its head with 2 maces. And in surveying his surroundings, realizes that there's something to the south of him. What is that?
It is.
What is that? Because it looks like a mech. It just looks like
it is for sure a mech.
It's
It
a
is
straight
for
up
sure
like
a mech.
loader,
In
like from
this-
Aliens, a loader.
It is. It is a loading rig, and depending on how you play through this encounter, it may or may not be active.
what the shit, Brian?
It is not active. I think Saturday morning's game fought it.
We
Fought it? Oh man.
yeah,
Um,
we
no,
did.
no. Goblins climb in it and use it. All right, it's your turn.
Yeah. So it looks like it can only hold a creature that is of small size.
Yes, you cannot use
Okay.
it. You cannot use it.
Ah, God.
All right.
Someday we'll play a campaign where you guys get to fight in Final Fantasy VI mecha armor and kill things, but now is not the day.
As a bonus action, Lorzach clasps a hand to his chest and channels some much needed hit points back into himself with Healing Word, and he regains like the minimum amount. Come on, man. And as an action, is going to whirl around, spotting the goblin that is closest to him here, and will emit a concentrated jet of virulent poison. Will it please make a Constitution saving throw?
A 7.
And it will take 3
the
poison
minimum?
damage. No, it's not the minimum, but come on, man.
Hmm.
Next up, Fikara.
Yes.
So, pausing here for a moment. I can feel that the energy is dropping a little bit. People are doing their best to kind of color. We don't want to keep it down. Again, it's the DM's job. You got to spot it. You got to bring the energy back up. So I'm going to take half a moment to kind of re-describe what's going on, reestablish the stakes. Fikara, you guys are trapped in the darkness. You managed to save Lorzach, but in saving him, you sacrifice your flank as this goblin comes and stabs you up into the backside. You can see more threats coming out. You got to make some choices. You got to fend for yourself. You got to try and save your friends. What are you going to do?
I'm going to go for the one that stabbed me because that is the most immediately close to Lorzach. So I'm going to turn around and be like, that hurt, and just come at him with my maces with a 24 and a 1. It's still dark, so I completely missed one of them. And the
No, you're illuminated. You're illuminated. Landry has you're in light.
Right, but I rolled a nat.
Oh,
one.
you weren't rolling a disadvantage. I'm with you. Keep going.
Yeah,
so you have one
yeah.
hit.
Yeah, and then the other was a crit hit, so that will be 12 bludgeoning.
12 bludgeoning damage. Taken.
Okay.
Oh, 12 is enough. How does it happen?
Oh.
Hey.
They're like 1/8 challenge rating goblins.
You're like 1/8 challenge rating goblins.
Oh, I was looking sassy. So Fikara winds up similar to the head smashing before, but this time she goes for the midsection of this goblin and just rips him in two, and they go flying in separate directions, hitting the nearest boxes.
With blunt objects?
I hit really hard. Fight me.
I am. All right, moving on. Xenia.
Can I
No,
see?
Brevin. I'm a liar. I'm a liar. I'm a liar, Brevin.
Oh, maybe.
Brevin is going to rush up to this goblin. And
by how? That's
by
4
running.
spaces.
I was here. Don't you always allow one diagonal in a full move? Isn't that your thing?
Not in difficult terrain.
He was here. Okay, fine. So then he runs up to this goblin.
Not in difficult terrain. All right, no, fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I don't know why I'm being speculative about it. That's fine.
He runs up to the back goblin and takes a swing with a longsword.
Do it.
As Brevin runs in swinging a longsword, he's also kind of like stumbling over boxes and really trying to get his foot. And footing is the word I was going for. And he's making a lot of clanging sounds because he's wearing chainmail. And he gets there, but rolls a natural 1 on the attack. And
that box took a real mean shiv.
Just,
yeah, man. That's why you can. That's all let you do. You want. You're gonna fail anyway. Here we go, Xenia.
Oh, ouch. Okay. Do I have clear sight to this guy here?
I would like to
Like,
point
can I
out,
see over this box in front of me?
I'd like to point out that, and I'd like to point out that, and then I'd like to point out that smaller one stacked on top. No.
Well, I don't know the height. Look. Okay.
Big.
What if I move to this spot? Can I see?
Yes.
Okay, great. I don't know why we're
Minus
laughing. Am I being made fun of? And I don't know.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all, Leandry. Oh my goodness,
Nope.
no.
It's my greatest fear. Okay, so, all right. I am sick to my stomach that I am in this dank warehouse and having to fight these frightening goblins. And so I use that to my advantage and I hurl up a bubble of bile that I spit at both of those goblins because they're within 5 feet of one another.
That a girl.
Will a 10 hit?
A 10?
Yeah.
No.
And you just see Xenia throwing up uselessly.
It splashes on Brevin's shoes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Um,
Fakara.
So, bottom of the round, the goblins are up. Moving forward. You see the smaller goblin in front of the big guy look like he's going to make a move towards Lorzach, and he half sort of steps forward, and you just hear the big goblin in the back go, "What are you doing? Don't leave me!" And then the goblin goes, "Oh, okay, we're going to attack that guy." So then he shifts around and swings at Brevin.
Bring it.
Ooh, 15.
Does not hit.
Oh, and then the big guy turns around and says, "I don't know who you are, but you stepped into the wrong warehouse, punk." He pulls out a scimitar.
Oh.
He's going to attack you twice.
Okay,
Get
bring
here.
it. Ting, ting.
Yep.
Yes.
So,
Worked
Yep.
out so well for me.
Lorzach.
okay. Lorzach is going to close distance.
That's a good place to stand. I like it when you stand there.
I'm glad somebody does. Lorzach, as an action, is going to reach out with another just really foul, really gross stuff, just encrusting this index finger, and he's going to try and bore into this giant gobbo boss with his sickening primal savagery.
Okay.
And is going to roll a 10 to hit.
10 does not hit.
All right, that's it.
Fakara.
I'm going to move forward towards the tiny goblin that is attacking Brevin and near Lorzach and just haul off with my maces for a 15 and a 23.
They both hit.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That'll be 16 total damage.
16 total damage.
Yes.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Woo-wee. That little guy is still up.
All right.
He looks to be a little bit meatier.
Oh, could you
Well,
move me
please-
up?
Yes, I can.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, yes, yes,
I appreciate
yes,
it.
yes.
You're
Wow.
the best.
I am. Brevin.
Brevin, having just blocked 2 scimitar swipes with his shield, will retaliate with his longsword in kind for a 17 to hit.
Just hits.
Ooh, thank the sweet baby.
Just manages to get around the shield.
For 7 points of slashing damage as he squares off with this goblin.
And as you wind up to swing into this goblin, he will use redirect attack to swap spaces with any goblin within 5 feet. And as the swing comes in, he goes, "What are you doing? Save me!" And he swaps spaces with this goblin. Sure. Didn't write this, so thank you for the people who wrote this. But understand your enemies. Understand the cool things they can do that might be cinematic. Don't have that goblin go running up. Keep that goblin back around this goblin boss because you might be able to set this up. I know that my players tend to exor minions and go attack the big guys when they get a chance to do. So I'm going to exploit that and make a cool cinematic moment. How much damage?
7 points of slashing damage.
He is still up, though.
And then as a bonus action, I will take second wind to regain some health.
So you wind up, and this goblin goes, protect me, and grabs the goblin on the other side and drags him in front, and you end up chopping that other goblin instead.
All right.
Okay. Xenia.
Xenia furiously rubs her hands together, rubs them on her pants, creates the static electricity, goes back to the firebolt because she thinks maybe this time it's going to work, and she aims it at the sacrificial goblin.
Okay.
It's a good
Oh,
lore
yeah.
book.
For a 22.
Yes, a 22 hits.
Yay!
Thank you. Now, it only did 1 point of damage, but at least it did something this
That
time.
guy. Hit that guy. All right, it's the goblin's turn. The one goblin's going to swing at Lorzach for a 15.
Protection?
You are, yeah, I think that still counts. Yeah,
That's why I said it with a question mark.
yeah, I think
It's 7.5, and technically it says 5, so I'd accept it if you said no.
you could say 7.5, but corner to corner is like not like it's 7.5
Yeah.
from the ends. I'm usually like okay because otherwise it encourages you not to flank, and
Right.
that just feels wrong. I'll allow it personally.
Okay.
It depends on the day how I feel about it. The other one will be a natural 20 if you damn well care.
It
So-
hits.
You will take the minimum 3 stabby damage. The other guy will.
Lorzach.
The other guy will attack Brevin
Yeah, sure.
for a 20
Yeah.
and a 7.
Well, the 20 will indeed hit there, Brian.
You will take 9 slashing damage.
It is a real good thing I took some second wind last turn.
Yes. Fikara.
Yes. My turn now, correct?
Yeah.
No, isn't it Lorzach? Lorzach should go?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lorzach's turn. So
Oh,
back
back
to another thing. We are back into what would be the 4th round of combat. Now, personally, I can feel the energy starting to drop. I can feel the pace starting to bend. It is time to bring this to an end. I might be able to drop a character to 0, which would create a little bit of drama, but the likelihood that they immediately win the fight after that is very high, which means knocking somebody down. That would mean that the players wouldn't make any effort to help that person get up. They would take the conscientious game rule, the game strategy, which would be to go in and kill these guys before the combat ends so they can revive them for free. And when you accidentally create a situation where your players are making game decisions instead of story decisions, now you're watching people do math, and that's not the intent of the program you're trying to make. Go ahead, Lorzach.
Lorzach, seeing the giant goblin boss surrounded on all sides, decides to not give him a way out, and his head twists around, and he spits this jet of acid into the face of the goblin bodyguard. Will it please make a Constitution saving throw?
Oh my god, he's like Reptile from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
I rolled a 5.
And
No, a
the
4. Doesn't matter.
goblin will take 5 poison damage.
Now, this goblin technically has 8 hit points left. It doesn't matter. Recognize when the fight is over. Figure the way to keep the story going. He's going to do it. I'm going to give Lorzach a reward for playing, give him a chance to characterize stuff. How does it happen?
As the goblin is winding up for a big swing and emitting this little squeaky battle cry, a bunch of the poison gets straight in his mouth, and he just tries to cough it up, chokes, and collapses to the ground and starts quivering.
So you are now in, that's pretty gross. You are now immediately out of initiative. Oh, my stomach just went. You're immediately out of initiative as all of the other goblins that you saw run in here left, and the goblin with the shield and the scimitar drops both of them. It says, all right, I give up. Okay, I got it. Message loud and clear.
Are you Krenko?
Yeah.
We have
Wait,
someone who would.
Wait. Who are you guys? He puts his arms down. You're not cops. Well, who the hell are you?
We were sent by,
I point at Fakar and say, she's a cop.
I mean, soldier. There's a little bit of a difference. We have a better budget.
You do not. You're having your weapons made in the Foundry Street.
Nasius sent us.
Sent you to do what?
Hey, Brevin will just politely remind the group that we can do what we want to do, but we were under very strict instructions not to interrogate this goblin.
Well,
we're not interrogating. He's interrogating us. He's asking the questions.
I got to bring the timbre up because we're going into widget too easily.
I did hear a widget.
I'm sorry. You said that Nasia sent you.
Who is he really?
Well, I mean, it's I don't know. This could be fun. Let me guess. You're supposed to tie me up, take me back, and release me into their custody, right? Great. Okay. You got me. You win. You big tough guys. You win. Congratulations. You killed my goons.
Lord Zetch is collecting the scimitar and the shield on the ground.
Can I make an insight roll to see if he's genuinely going to come with us and cooperate? Or if he's going to stab us in the back?
Don't turn your
16?
back on him.
A 16?
Yeah.
He seems all too willing to come with you.
For someone who escaped from prison, you seem really eager to go back into custody for some reason.
Oh, no, I don't want. No, what am I gonna do? You kicked the snot out of my goons. You got me. You win.
We have what we came for. We don't have time to dawdle.
I mean, that's fine. The Shadowgang brothers are just going to run amok over the city. That's fine. We're the only thing standing in their way, but that's fine. That's fine. I hope they don't blow up your garrison or, I don't know, blow up your building or, I don't know, maybe set fire to your, I don't know, Conclave Glade Tree Forest or whatever. That's fine. It's fine.
I love explosions.
Quiet satisfaction that he can't threaten the Undercity.
Yeah. You got to take me to Nassius.
Okay. You do know that's a dumb move, right? Like, you do know that that's like a dumb thing to do. You haven't figured that out yet?
I mean,
Walk
I'm
and
starting
talk.
to get
No.
that sense. Yeah.
All right.
Wait,
Why
is it dumb?
You'll find out.
And Brevin will offer to the group. What do we think would happen if we delivered Krenko directly to Uzdek?
I mean, we could always just deliver him to the Boros if this Nastiest character thought that the Azorius were corrupt.
Yes, but what about the money?
That's a good point. The money's important.
But so is justice.
We have what we came for. If you would care to have a garrison on site when we deliver the prisoner to Nassius, that is your prerogative, not mine. Shall we walk and talk?
Yeah.
I guess we shall.
That sounds good.
So we're walking toward the Selesnian granary.
Yeah.
Do we need to discuss anything on the way?
So really, who is this Nastiest guy?
As far as I know, Nassius is a clerk who works for the Guild Pact.
Sounds like a guy that isn't going to send you back to prison. That's how I feel right now.
Smell cahoots.
I don't know. Nassius just isn't all he appears to be now, is he?
I think we should deliver him straight to the prison, and I think they'll give us a reward for catching Krenko.
I think that's a dumb idea, but what do I know? I only broke out in the first place.
Isn't Uzdek like miles and miles and miles away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I
do
don't
think
know
it's
these
fine.
things.
As far as Lorjach is concerned, they have what they came for, and the deal isn't, satisfied until this guy is in Nassius's custody. He does not believe that Nassius is who he says he is, and as far as Lorjach is concerned, that doesn't matter.
See, this is a great opportunity because your players are going to be discussing stuff. This still qualifies as really, really good audio. But what you've purposefully done or inadvertently done as a DM, if you can create moments like this intermittently, is you can hear the audience playing along. Your audience is going to listen to everyone's proposition, but now your audience is trying to figure out what is going to come next, which means your audience is anticipating audio that probably isn't going to come until your next episode, which means now they're on the hook for another episode's worth of listening. That is the sort of narrative value of this as far as audience retention.
But if we take him to Nasius, what if Nasius just kills him?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that is not my concern.
But then he
Tis
won't
no
be.
snot out of my nose.
What is your alignment, Brevin?
Chaotic, good.
As a Selesnian? We'll have a talk about that later.
Okay.
I missed the build that should have stopped that, but that's okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is the plan?
To the granary.
Lorzach's plan is to take him to Nasius in the granary.
Okay.
Anybody
object at this point?
I will be confused, but agree to go with everyone. Just having that feeling that something's not right.
Xenia just wants the money. So.
All right, to the granary.
The rain intensifies into a downpour as you head to the outskirts of the 10th district. You were directed to the old granary that Nasius picked as the rendezvous point. The wet, crumbling clay building sits out in an unattended field and is overgrown with all manner of vegetation, almost completely reclaimed by the wild. Nasius steps out of the entryway into the field holding a small purse, and he is flanked by two heavily armed guards.
Do they appear to be unaligned?
They are not wearing any guild affiliation.
Okay.
I believe we have something for you.
Ah, I was very prompt.
I prefer to deliver my things on time. Punctuality is a point of pride.
Was our agreement followed to the letter?
He asked us a bunch of questions.
Nasius cranes his neck.
Sarah, what are you doing?
Shit. Fuck.
To which we have no answers.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
That, unfortunately, was not part of our agreement.
We didn't interrogate him.
As Nasius begins to back up slowly into the door as the armed guards step in front, and you hear him call, "Officers, I believe we have caught those who aided in Krenko's escape." And 6 Azorius officers step out from amongst the trees. Cliffhanger ending. Bum, ba, 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 ba. And that's how you close AUP. And that's how you create. Yeah.
No, Sarah. Sarah,
Yeah, yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Let's just tell the dude.
Come on, Sarah.
No, following the alignment.
Following the alignment.
It's absolutely the correct choice.
Everybody made a fine choice. Everything was fine. And
Yeah.
that's how you create the hook on that ending. There is more stuff in here that could come, but also in this particular adventure, it's meant to be a setup. You can expand it to a Mr. Taz mystery or something like that too. But
Who
you
is
now
Mr.
see
Taz?
now you see the value. If you had done that scene to its conclusion, you would have created an end to the story, and trying to pick up a new beat in the following episode, it's just going to be too hard to kind of restart. So even if you resolve all this in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the next episode, you're overlaying everything by just a little bit to keep things going. Yeah, Andrew.
I don't need you to spell it out, but are there like multiple real identities for who Nasius is, depending on how you want to play it?
Sort of, yes.
All right.
There are multiple options for how he escaped there are multiple reasons for why he escaped, and there's multiple ways to resolve each of those escapes. It is truly for being a mini adventure. Sorry, we're gonna Wizards of the Coast sponsor the podcast. For something that comes in a singular book, and it's important to recognize that mini adventures like this don't come in the D&D Beyond versions of those books. Those are not complete compendiums when you buy. The Krenko's Adventure is not in the D&D Beyond version of Guildmasters of Ravnica. As far as I dug as hard as I could find.
It is, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I dug forever trying to find it for the map.
It's the last chapter of the book.
Oh, so it's not in the correct order. Well, ignore everything that I said embarrassingly on camera. But still, considering the fact that you get the compendium, that you get what you could play through multiple times. I've never seen a one-shot that you can play through multiple times, with just really completely different scenarios. That could be an entirely different thing. That adventure alone is worth half the book. So we really, really encourage you guys to find something that you might be able to claim as a unique scenario, whether you build the world for yourself or you pick up a compendium that nobody else really seems to be using for D&D adventure podcasts. We recommend it because it'll give you a lot of options and it'll give you a lot of stuff too, like I have regret. Yeah, of course it do. Thank you guys so very much for joining us to us. We're gonna sort of round off there. Anybody have any immediate final thoughts before we wrap up this segment?
I'm so sorry I killed everyone.
Who knows? Tune in next week.
We won't have anything next week.
No, we won't have anything.
Yeah.
But it's just an example of caffeine. So,
God damn it.
we want to thank everybody who joined us for any amount of time this weekend. Gen Con, Gen Con was unfortunately, like many conventions this year, put into a very, very challenging position. And I think we owe them a great deal of support and praise for being able to put together what they were able to put together, because they truly do care about the community and the fan base. It is one of my personal favorite weekends out of the entire year. We're really sad we weren't able to see you guys. However, thanks to this particular format, Encounter Party was able to be a part of Gen Con in a way that realistically we haven't quite earned from a physical representation yet. So anyone who joined us for anything, including this or any of our other segments, we really hope that you guys got a greater sense of all the work that we put into our show. You get a greater sense of sort of some of the professional elements that happen with Encounter Party. Thank you, Ned, for contributing a lot of behind the scenes technical stuff. Can we please spam the heck out of chat? Can we spam the heck out of chat for Brad Davies, Sarah's husband, for being Lord of the Board, providing tech for 4 days, 24 hours a day, completely straight. And we really hope that this segment in particular gave you guys an understanding of sort of what it takes to produce some top quality actual play stuff. And hopefully you guys will be, I know, for you guys who would be, inspired or feel like you could go away from this weekend and start making some content of your own, you have our full support. Ned.
Do not, all of you who are here, a lot of you are party people. We're very excited, but a lot of you have never interacted with us before. We're so excited you're here. Tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, we are streaming a live stream of our brand new episode that is written to stand alone from the story, which means if you've never experienced Encounter Party before, you can listen to this, and yes, there will be some things you have questions about, but nothing will be ruined, and you can go back and start from the beginning. We really hope you come back at 8:30 and spend an hour with the cast and the team and the fans here on Twitch, having a really great time, checking out a new episode. It is a blast of an adventure. We finished recording season 2 with time to spare, and Brian improv'd on the spot an entire arc that is wild, and I highly recommend you all come hang out for the insanity or inanity, we'll let you choose, that this ended up being.
So if you guys caught any of our Twitch Plays Random D&D on Friday or Saturday night, this is very much in the same vein, but it's polished, I guess, because it was professionally edited. But it is probably the funniest thing you might ever hear us do. The players were really on peak form, and it is an adventure. First of all, tonight at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, enjoy part 1 of a new Encounter Party extra adventure, Flame Broiled, a Piazza Delivery. I cannot stress enough how literal that title is. If that intrigues you at all, You need to check out. Come hang out with us. We're going to be online. We're going to be chatting. If you guys really want to round out your Gen Con with some social experience, become a party person. Hang out with the party and enjoy the show and connect with us. We'd love to have you around. Ned, what sort of channels are we going to be open? Is it going to be put out on Twitch?
It'll be on Twitch. We'll be chatting on Twitch. We don't have like a Discord up for it. We'll be chatting here on Twitch. We have our own Discord that we hope you'll join us afterwards, and we'll drop those links at the time. But here on Twitch, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/EncounterParty.
If you are new to the show or have not yet had a chance to listen to Encounter Party, visit encounterparty.com, where you can access every episode. We made some more, including some extra information, some illustrations, or download Encounter Party anywhere podcasts can be accessed. We are literally everywhere. Encounter Party has had a great year. We've hit some serious comedy fiction charts. We've now charted in over 40 countries, approaching 50 countries as I say this. So if you still aren't convinced,
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
We hit our 50th country this morning.
Yeah. We started in over 50 countries. We really recommend that you come check it out. And again, if you're questioning whatsoever, come hang out with a bunch of people tonight, and listen to this silly episode that's meant to be enjoyed parallel to the current campaign. Join us on social media. A lot of information is on the website. The best place you can go right now for all the information you want is encounterparty.com. Keep a lookout for more stuff now that our Twitch channel is set up. I will be doing a lot more visual design for our new show based on the world of Isla Brea. That's primarily being designed by Andrew Krug and myself. So if you like to interact with us more, you want to see more, if you caught any of our drawing sessions this weekend and you're really excited to learn about what's coming up, to hear about a brand new world that we're developing, we have a lot more information and education and stuff about that process. And if you missed anything this weekend, everything's going to be available for videos on demand on our Twitch channel, which you'll be able to watch and catch up on any of our education seminars at your own convenience. Thank you guys so much for being a part of us this weekend. It was so nice to connect with so many new people. It was so nice to get feedback on a lot of what we're doing. We love all of you. And as always, let's keep the party going. Party tonight. There's a party tonight. Join the party. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, gang.
Bye.
Thank you.
Fake freeze frame.
Route.
Oh,
Can you guys hang on mic for a couple minutes?
Yeah, for sure.
yes.
Sure.
Great.
Do you want me to record this? Yes, no?
Right now, what I'm doing?
Yes.
No.
No.
We're
No,
having
we're
a
just chatting.